morning, everyone. I'm sure it is a little hard to see me right now as it is quite dark up here and I'm quite sunburned. But I am here ready to cover the third launch of Starship, which has slipped a little bit. There have been very foggy conditions this morning, a bit windy. It's always windy down here. Some of you guys have been asking where I am. The reason that I have been delaying the stream is because SpaceX keeps postponing the launch a little bit. However, we should be, doing better now. I'm going to give you a view really quickly here. Let's see if I can turn it around. Oh man, can I turn it around? That's not good. Okay. Camera, turn around. How do I turn it around? Okay, here we go. So I'm doing this through StreamYard. Some of you guys asked why I have chosen to change the stream here, and this is because StreamYard allows me to go on X as well. So take a look at what we have in front of us. I am on the roof of Margaritaville. Glad to hear that we have great signal, great connection. This live stream is powered by Starlink. So not too long ago, this was completely foggy. I couldn't see any of those lights ahead. So this is good that it is starting to clear up and I have greater visibility. I'm about to bring my computer up here so that hopefully I can share the SpaceX stream in a different feed. However, wanted to show you what it looks like this morning. Obviously, we were hoping that we have good conditions because the launch window is only a certain amount of time. And I'm gonna check on my friend Joe Tegmeyer, who is also mic'd up. So if this launch slips anymore, you may see us, dip in and out of standing in front of the camera. But Joe Tegmeyer, how's it going?
Good. Just new update because of some ships out in the water. The T0 is slipping to 8:10 now for the launch attempt.
Okay, 8:10 a.m. because of those pesky boats. That's annoying. But here we can see the NSF feed, and obviously that's a little better than my view. But it's definitely been clearing up, which is good news. And you're saying that what are the conditions as of right now?
Well, right now, the something called temperature dew point spread is basically zero. That's the temperature and the temperature equivalent for when you can get a lot of moisture and fog development. Since they're exactly the same, that means conditions are very favorable for the fog that we're seeing. However, with sunlight and the winds that are picking up, that can help dissipate that. And we're actually seeing some of the visibility increasing, so that's a good sign. The fact that they're getting a little bit more time helps. We're still right in the middle of the window for the launch, so that's also very good. So I think we're still optimistic. Last I heard, SpaceX was saying 70% chance of going. If everything else checks out and it's just a matter of visibility, they may elect to go anyway. The other condition that we're worried about is upper level winds for wind shear, and we'll have to see if it's within the limits for SpaceX. We don't have that information, but it is something that they're watching.
Right. Let's see your shirt. Nice.
Hopefully this will be accurate today, and this shows the Starship getting into orbit, and then we can do some of the milestone tests and then see if it can splash down southwest of Madagascar in the Indian Ocean. So
yeah, that was a surprising change because for the longest time we've been thinking, off the coast of Hawaii.
Yeah, the first two flights did have off the coast of Kauai, about 60 miles northeast, but this one has changed. I think part of the reason why is that one of the demos that they hope to achieve today is do a relight of the Raptors in orbit. That would be effectively a deorbit burn. And by doing that, that'll change the perigee, the low point of the orbit, from about 200 kilometers or about 50 kilometers to negative 250 kilometers, which means it would re-enter. And by doing that, it would also re-enter earlier. So it's about halfway around the world versus 80% around the world right now.
Right. They have a lot of ambitions for this third launch. It'll be crazy if they're able to meet all the goals, but for sure we want orbit first and foremost.
Right. I just put a post on X with some of the key milestones to look for, and just sort of rehashing or recapping that. Successful launch, successful hot stage, booster boost back, and a controlled landing about 20 kilometers into the Gulf from here. And there will be some assets out there to judge the accuracy and get, the visuals, hopefully.
The payload door test.
When the ship goes up, get into the orbit payload door, tip tank transfer, which is demonstrating about 10 tons of transfer of propellant from the tip tanks to the main tanks, and that's to help satisfy the demonstration of in-flight or in-orbit refilling. And of course the boost burn and the reentry, and then the controlled splash. And then the other one is we need to see stage 0, the launch facility, survive and be able to do a rapid reuse. So we're looking for all of that.
And I have to mention we have over 1,400 people watching. If you guys support Ellie in Space and appreciate this coverage, please consider super chatting, even if it's a few dollars. We are full-time YouTube creators, and it really helps the channel. So you guys were very generous yesterday, and this is the big day. This is the launch, and so just please consider super chatting if you are able to, as it really helps out. In front of me, I have NASA on the roof. NASA space flight is also down there, and I am using my Starlink. So we have 2 Starlinks next to each other. This one is mine. This one is NASA's, and you know what? Those Gen 3 Starlinks with the kickstand are working out pretty well. So I'm really grateful that this launch, I will have that to help me out. But I'm going to plug this into, or I'm gonna put this in the tripod so that I can show you guys my face. Now, I will warn you, I am very sunburned right now, so that's not cool. But okay, so Starship 26 says, wow, great view. I'm gonna try to stand in front of it for a second. I can't see myself, but hopefully you guys can see me at least a little bit. Joe is gone. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining my stream. I know that you guys are going to be popping in and out of several people's streams, and soon I hope to get the SpaceX feed up with mine so that we have it side by side. But I changed the stream from YouTube. I know a lot of you guys were waiting to StreamYard, because that way I'm able to stream on Twitch, on YouTube, on X, and Facebook simultaneously, which means more eyes and hopefully more support for the channel. You guys supporting the channel is the reason that I can bring you this coverage, try to interview the best of the best. I have an interview with Everyday Astronaut coming out soon that I filmed yesterday. So again, not to be annoying, but if you guys can super chat, that really helps, as these trips are expensive. And you have to pay for things like Starlink, but they make a difference, and they make me feel a lot less amateur. So Joe, can you tell how burned I am?
Not right here. A little bit near your chest area, but yeah.
I put a lot of cover up on my face, so it's just as bad as my neck. I know that I gave you guys the tips to use the sunscreen, and I clearly did not do a great job on that. I can't read the comments, so
this says the remote mic is not on.
Okay. Well, let me try to.
Yeah, they say they can hear you, but it's very low.
Fix that. So I am completely blind right now. You guys, I just switched it to the headset microphone. Let me know if you can hear. Let me know if you guys can hear. It's much better now. Okay. So fantastic. And I do see some super chats, so thank you guys for super chatting. We have over 2,000 people watching right now, so if you guys are, able to super chat, that is awesome. But Joe, why don't you stand next to me here, and let's chat. A lot of people are wondering, when is this going to launch? The time has changed. Right. All throughout the morning, so we're thinking in about an hour.
Well, right now 8:10 is the central time, so that would be 13:10 UTC. It would not surprise me if they slip it just a little bit more. The window is open until 9 o'clock local, so they're about halfway through the window right now, so they still have some time. The conditions are actually improving. The visibility is getting better. I can actually see some of the sun coming up now, which is a positive sign.
Yeah.
And the wind's helping as well.
Yeah.
For those that want to see the SpaceX live stream, I think at 7:37, about maybe 15, 20 minutes from now, is when it's currently supposed to go online. So we'll be able to see what's going on with SpaceX directly.
Yeah, and I brought my computer up here, so I should be able to put those two side by side.
Okay.
If you guys remember last launch, I was having some technical difficulties with the service, and so about 2 minutes before the launch, I had to figure out how to connect again. So we shouldn't have that problem today because Starlink has been
so far
quite incredible.
Great, yeah.
It was so good yesterday at Starbase, which still blows my mind because it's always been incredibly hard down there. Do you mind talking for a second while I do one thing really quickly?
Sure.
So, maybe do a little tap dance.
Okay, no problem. So if it's 8:10 is the launch time, then the liquid oxygen should be being loaded up about 53 minutes before that. So that would make it public math about 7:17 or so. And right now we're about 5 minutes from that happening if it does. And then about 2 minutes later than that, the liquid methane would start to flow. As many of you SpaceX has been doing a lot of work with the stage 0, the ground support. They've added a lot more of the pumps for both the liquid oxygen and the methane, and that has actually shortened the amount of time necessary to fill up both the booster and the ship. And it's pretty incredible because now it's about the same as it is for Falcon 9. However, we're talking about somewhere around 5,000 tons of propellant, fuel, and oxidizer being loaded in about 45 minutes, which is just an incredible amount of capacity that they have added. So I know they've been doing a lot of testing with that, and on the wet dress rehearsal, they were able to demonstrate that it was at that speed. That's kind of the reason why we're able to get this compressed time frame right now between when they start the propellant loading and also the T0, which again right now is at 8:10. Some of that is being caused by the weather or the visibility and the winds, and then some of it's being caused because there's some boats apparently out in the water and they're trying to work with the Coast Guard and getting that cleared up too. So that's kind of what's going on.
So Joe, we have almost 3,000 people
That's
watching
awesome.
right now, which
Thank
is
you very
I've
much for
never had
watching.
that many people in the stream. I think I've maybe seen 1,400 as a high number. So that is great. I appreciate you guys watching, and we have a little mini Starship. So this is something that you can order. It's a 3D printed Starship that actually vents. It's a humidifier, but I thought that I would just bring it out here and hopefully it doesn't blow away.
Okay.
That would suck.
It's actually almost better than the real one right now because we can see it.
Yeah. Yeah, and we were down there at Starbase yesterday. We were out there for quite a few hours, which is why I'm so sunburned. But it's always interesting, seeing it in person the day. It's a weird feeling. You're like, it's gone.
Exactly.
It actually is. That giant full stack, Starship combo is gone.
Yeah. And just to be able to stand where just a few hours ago, 17 million pounds of thrust was, going right across the beach, and you can literally walk right where the path was. It's just amazing. And obviously, if the launch goes well during that time, we'll see a lot of SpaceX out. They'll be inspecting the water deluge plate, the orbital launch platform, the tower. I don't know if we'll see this today. This is my guess, but at some point, if they're going to be catching the booster, then the chopstick arms are going to need to be both operational and they'll need to be repositioned for the catch. So I don't know if they'll test that, but that would be interesting to see if they move the arms into a configuration just to see how that would work.
Well, I'm just shocked at the big goals that they have today.
Yes.
They have a lot that they want to accomplish, and we were talking about this yet. IFT let's just be. And you're saying this
don't blow up the pad, which in array they kind of anyway, but it was pretty quickly. IFT2 was staging work and
Now 8:10.
okay,
Okay,
so
so
still
SpaceX. So Starlink. Okay. We should be going. How is it going right now? New comments. Let's see here. Are you guys able to see me again? I know we're vertical right now. Video is coming back. Audio too. How is it right now? Can someone let me know if it's any better? Yes, not great. Sounds like you have it clear again. Okay.
okay.
So let me explain what happened here.
Technical difficulties.
Well, if you don't solve one thing, there's another problem.
Yeah.
You think you solve one thing, but we have 3,300, 3,400 people in the room right now. So yesterday I noticed that if I wasn't using my phone or I locked my phone, it would not be connected to Starlink anymore.
Oh.
What happened right now is it just connected to Margaritaville guest, which
Oh,
is clearly
okay.
not that
Right,
good up here.
right.
So I was able to forget that network, forget you,
Right.
and hopefully stay on the Starlink. Yes. Do we want to get your iPad and maybe hold it up for a little bit, or should I try and share one of the streams? Or should we just keep babbling?
I think if you can try to share the stream, that way we can test it out now before we get close.
So
we
are
are right now. If everything's online with the 810, we should be getting the initial propellant loading starting right now.
All right, let's go check that out.
We'll have to see what the NSF is showing on that, and some of the other streams, because obviously the visibility is increasing some, but we still can't see the ship from where we are located. And just to finish up what I was just talking about for IFT3, this is very important because it's no longer just does it work. We have to demonstrate that it actually does work. And with those milestones that they have, the oversight from NASA for the human landing system, also just setting the stage for the next set of tests, getting to the point where we can do in-flight or in-orbit refilling. Maybe in the next couple of flights, if everything goes well, possibly deploy some Starlinks to kind of show that they have some operational capability. And of course, they want to continue to develop the booster coming back and get ready to try to do the catch at some point. And of course, continue to develop the ship for its ability to re-enter in a intact, controllable way, because that is also going to be important as the development continues later this year. And for some of you may have heard that SpaceX has requested up to 9 flights this year. I think it's now been rolled back to maybe 6. And I think that's maybe more doable just because of the number of ships and boosters they've already got built. And those are the version 1s. And then they're going to have to build more to hit that 6 this year if they do that. And that gives them some time to do that in the production facility throughout the rest of the year while they're doing the other prototypes. The other thing just to keep in mind is if they do 6 more times, we've got basically 10 more months of the year if this goes today. So that's going to be one every month and a half or so. So that's going to be a pretty aggressive launch cadence that they have. So I don't know. Are there any questions people have?
There's not any questions. Everything looks good. You're
Okay.
about at 4,000 here, and then she put up the Starlink kind of enter screen on it.
Oh, okay. Well, very good. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I'm sure from all over the world, it's a great opportunity to see what's going on here, the excitement of SpaceX, and just, you know, one of the things that I like most about what's going on with commercial space, that would be SpaceX and some of the other commercial companies like Relativity, Rocket Lab, Blue Origin, is it's really just generating that interest in space. And hopefully we're getting a lot more people around the world to understand what's going on and just how significant a launch like this will be once they get it perfected and operational. It's going to definitely change how spaceflight has been seen in the past and our capabilities. So really appreciate everybody joining in on Ellie's channel.
I think people are joining in because we have stepped up our game this time. We finally have a good connection, and I just pulled up the SpaceX stream, so I have it in another window. So hopefully when it starts, some people were asking for the link for this 3D printed Starship, so I have pinned that in the comments. I assembled this myself. They, you know, have a instructional video. This is by Stardust, and if you purchase one of these, it does support my channel. So if you have a 3D printer, you're able to actually purchase that so you can print it by yourself. You can also have the pieces sent to you and you can assemble it. This is something maybe fun to do with your kids, and it actually does vent. I don't have it plugged in right now, but it is a humidifier. And let's just give you a quick little look at it here. So we have the tank farm, we have the Mechazilla, we have the tower. So it's pretty well done. It even has little heat tiles here. 4,000 plus people, you guys. This is incredible. I've never had this many people on a live stream. If you guys are feeling generous this morning and want to help support the channel, please consider super chatting. But as you can see, it is getting lighter out here. We still are having trouble seeing the rocket. I don't think you're going to see it from your vantage point right now, at least on the screen. But luckily, the NASA spaceflight feed, they're able to see it pretty well. And actually joining us up here on the roof, we have NASA and we have NASA spaceflight. So we're not alone up here, but guests are not allowed up here. Right. However, I'm staying on the 8th floor. I have a view of the rocket. And so if you do stay here, you can still have a pretty incredible view from your balcony. The number one question we've been getting from people is where to watch the launch. And so I've sent pretty much everyone to Isla Blanca Park. Right. That is actually something that we're already seeing people walk on the beach. So if you're staying somewhere on South Padre Island, it's very easy to walk there. Everything is pretty close together, unless you're on crutches, but I actually did do that once upon a time. So yeah, where are we at now in the process? You've been keeping an eye on the NSF. I've been trying to troubleshoot.
Well, I haven't seen anything official yet from SpaceX, but propellant loading should have already begun. We should be seeing some frost lines on the booster and the ship. We're not seeing that yet, which indicates that there is some sort of a further delay. I don't know exactly what that would be, but I'm going to guess maybe another 15, 20 minutes, but I'm going to go try to get more information.
So I have an idea, and this is something that I've wanted to do during many launches. I have the interview with Tim Dodd, which I've only shared with my patrons and subscribers. How about we reward the people that are watching right now, play that 14-minute video, show people everyday astronauts interview yesterday, and then we come back on.
That sounds like a plan, and that'll give us a chance to see what's really going on. But it does look like there is some sort of delay just by visual looking at what's going on with the ship. So hopefully we'll get that here very soon.
SpaceX just tweeted 8:25.
Okay, so 8:25. So that does confirm what I was just saying. And that gives them about 35 minutes after that to stay within the window. So.
And it gives you time to actually see some footage from yesterday with Tim Dodd, the everyday astronaut, one of the Dear Moon crew, someone who's going to the moon, and we need Starship to work for that.
Exactly.
So let's show you guys that interview. I hope that you guys enjoy this. I will be making a video about this. If you guys see the blue in the back of my hair right now, you might thinking, what's going on there? Well, of course, I have the blue to celebrate the methane, the blue methane streaks that you see.
That is awesome.
Okay,
can you see the
I hope
rockets?
that you guys enjoy this.
Les rockets.
I'm just gonna hold it.
Okay, yeah,
How's
that's what I do. It makes me feel more like a reporter.
You might be pretty surprised.
I might do what?
You might be surprised about this. We've asked a bunch of people which is more interesting to you, Cybertruck or the Starship, and almost all said the Cybertruck. Can you believe that?
I'll have to hook you up in just a few minutes.
I mean, this is interesting and all, but come on, are you kidding?
I know.
It's nice to see them together.
It is. It's actually really cool. Like brethren with stainless steel. You know, I mean, it's they're similar. Like you get that similar sense of engineering when you look at both of them.
Yeah,
You know?
you're recording, right? So, Tim, you're everyday astronauts. You're celebrity down here at Starbase. We're upcoming the third launch. Are you excited?
I'm more excited for this one than I've been for the previous two. I think almost.
Why is that?
I think on our end, it's just like we have our stuff a lot more put together finally. You know, like we just feel less stressed.
Yes.
The less we're thinking about like, our live stream and our cameras and all, like the more I'm able to think about the rocket and think about the mission. And I'm just, because of that, like I'm way more in the mental space of like, I know, just more what to expect and what to be excited about,
We know that Elon is optimistic. We're hoping to reach orbit. What are your predictions?
I think it's going to make all the milestones this time and get to re-entry. I don't even care if it makes it all the way through re-entry. My personal, this is a lot more refined. They have a lot of incredibly valuable data from last time. I fully expect to see that booster come back. I fully expect to see a successful landing burn out of it, soft splashdown. I think that's in the bag. I expect to see the 3 milestones of opening the door, propellant transfer, and Raptor relight. I think those are all in the bag. Then it will re-enter, like it's going to re-enter. Whether or not it survives in one piece is and that's the part of that I'm like 50-50 on, and I don't care as much.
Yeah.
Like it's like if it goes through all those other things, then that's great. Re-entry and recovering the upper stages is a long process. Like if it takes 10 times, I won't be surprised,
Well, and you have a vested interest in Starship because of Dear Moon. How is that training going?
Well, we're waiting on this thing. This thing has to make some pretty big milestone progress and changes and upgrades before we're even looking at crew accommodations, frankly. It's like we're waiting. That thing could still change.
Yeah.
There's still hardware that could substantially change between now and when we're flying on it. So, SpaceX is taking the cautious approach of like, I'm sure there's some stuff that's ready for crew, obviously with human landing systems. I'm sure they've developed and have a good hardware loop for a lot of those things. But frankly, until that stuff's all more set in stone, we're waiting.
Right. Well, I mean, we know that they've made up to 1,000 changes in between the flights just on Starship. So there's going to be some fine tuning. So is it true that you haven't started really any training yet, other than knowing that you're going to be on Dear Moon?
That's pretty much right. Yeah, we're pretty much just kind of waiting. Yeah. So
that's incredible.
And once I think it'll just be literally like a flip of a switch thing of like we hit this milestone.
Ton of activity
we feel like we now have the systems in place to actually begin a proper training regimen.
Now I'm curious. I just did a zero-G flight. Yes, I puked my brains out. Have you done zero-G yet?
You've never done zero-G.
Oh my God.
Besides like in a little plane, like 10 seconds of like.
But you've also done the flip side, which is the high G forces.
Yeah, I've done high Gs.
How does your body respond to that?
Pretty well, surprisingly. Like I grew up liking roller coasters and stuff, but I don't know if that translates. For me, I think it's somewhat, reasonably. I didn't get dizzy or sick or any, no nauseousness both times with Jared.
Do you get car sick?
I have once. And that's a weird thing. Once that clicks for the first time,
right.
I didn't know what people experienced. I was dumb. I was in the mountains in Peruvia on my phone playing a game,
that's what
going
happens.
like this, and all of a sudden, it just clicked, and I was like, this is horrible. So, I know now to, at least what that is and what to not try to do, and just have some... Keep your eyes at the horizon and stuff sometimes.
So that was me 70% of the zero-G flight. So it's definitely not for everyone. But hopefully you're able to, get some of that training, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of training you have for Dear Moon.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you think about that every day? Is that still crazy to you?
Not every day, but when I stop and think about it and remember that's still that's a thing that I have to think about, then it is crazy. But for me, I'm still literally thinking about the next video I'm making.
Right, right.
The daily tasks and the daily things, and it's just once that I'm trying to get as much of that stuff prioritized as possible now, because as soon as that call comes in that we're going to be, training,
you're going to be
then it's
busy.
all out the window. So
Right.
it's like I need to maximize and do as much as I can now before that does take over my, it'll probably take over 6 months to a year of my life,
Right. Well,
So,
and
until it does.
I'm so inspired by everything you've done. I feel like I'm trying to get to a point with my channel. I'm so proud of your success. You
Thank
just
you.
had your
I appreciate
Astro
that.
Awards. And one of the things that you posted on X recently is that some people are saying, where did Tim go? Where's his content? Let's set the record straight here on Boca Chica Beach.
Yeah, that's the worst. That is the worst comment, because it means that that frankly means that either the YouTube algorithm or my audience is failing me, because I've been producing videos every month since 2017. It's the same upload schedule. It's like I didn't change, you changed almost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's almost what it feels like to me. However, caveat, lately I have been trying to bring new people in.
Right.
Everyday Astronaut's goal is to bring space down to Earth for everyday people. Get people that don't even know they're excited. So I have been trying some videos that are more those like, hey, why don't they launch rockets from mountains?
Yeah.
Why don't they launch rockets from airplanes?
I like
more
that.
general things. I think a lot of my audience, they're teaching me things. My
Right.
audience is extreme. I love that. They're nerdy. They know all the details.
Same.
And it's great. It's incredible. But I do understand that those videos might not be for them. And I'm pretty sure the YouTube algorithm goes like, oh, you didn't watch this, this, and this. We're just not even going to show you any new
Right.
content. So because I had been doing more general, it's funny. I do a Starship video and it's like, there
Right.
they all are. There's everybody.
Same for me.
So it's hard because I don't want to, obviously I care about this
Yeah.
enough to invest my entire life savings into covering this stuff.
Right.
But there are other things out there, and I do want to constantly bring people into this world
Right.
and get people excited about this and understand this and appreciate the engineering decisions,
Well, you and I both don't have a background in this, but I'm so impressed with what you've been able to learn and educate people. And it really is. It's a lot to take in, and a lot of complex subjects here with rocket science.
Oh, yeah. And the constant decisions and keeping up with SpaceX's decision making is a task of many observers. I mean, it's funny, I posted that video about the changes that were made, and my friends in a Tank Watchers showed me, they have an article that's like 1,000 times more in depth. I'm just like, this is insane that people from the outside are able to gather all this information. Right. And then you think about that amount of info, and then you think about the people behind closed doors, all the little changes they're making and all the little tweaks and all the decisions they're making for these trade studies. It's just like, I can't even begin to imagine.
When you make a video that is kind of rocket engines 101 or whatever, very informative, do you still find it hard to bring it down to earth and make it simple?
Oh yeah. It's but I always have that, and unfortunately, from the Astro Awards, we lost a valuable team member, a friend of ours, who was like the ultimate champion of all script reads. Was always like, does the average person understand this? And I still always hear that when I'm scripting. It's like, and it's funny because that, to me, like, that was supposed to be my gig.
Right.
Does the average person? But he was always the next level champion of that. And so in Andy's honor, I will always remember, like, does the average person understand this?
Right.
And so it's always a constant, and I'm always thinking about my family that aren't aerospace enthusiasts.
Right.
My nephews, my niece, people that are just casual observers.
Right.
Will they understand the words that come out of my mouth?
Yes.
And if I start there every time, at least it'll help be some kind of compass.
Right. Will they understand what you're wearing? Methyloxynorminal. Will they get it?
Will they get it? If not, then I need to do a better job, Although those are fairly inside, you know what I mean? That's a little inside joke.
Inside joke, yeah. But the space nerds get it.
The space nerds get it.
Anything else, Joe, that maybe I missed?
But we talk about what the booster has to do. We talk about what the ship has to do. But what about stage 0 tomorrow?
I think stage 0 did, in my opinion, from the outside, looks like it did great last time compared to the first time. The improvement from first to second was massive. So even if it's a slight improvement from 2, I think it's already looking good. I feel like, if you think about it, they fired the booster so quickly after launch. Like, it was insane. It was within weeks, a handful of weeks after that launch, they had a static fire already on there. So I think the pad is capable of fairly quick cadence. I don't think it's going to be months turnaround on the pad anymore. I think they're to the point of it works good enough, and will they iterate on this? Of course.
Yeah.
Of course they will, because that's what they do. But they have a system that works, and they have a system that seems to be able to withhold, a reasonable pace.
Now, one of your most popular series, of course, is the tour of Starbase with the man himself. Do you have another one in the works?
Not in the works with Elon right now. There is some other exciting stuff coming to the channel.
So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. But I always have an open invitation. You know, I feel like I don't want to bug him about that kind of stuff, but I would love to do it again. There's been a lot of changes out here, a lot of changes. Seeing a full stack, I mean, like, come on.
Yeah.
It's awesome, and I would love to, but yeah, you know, he's a busy man.
He's a little busy. This is my 8th trip to Starbase, and it's just incredible to see the changes every day almost.
I can't keep up.
It's crazy.
The Star Factory, last time I saw it was like physically half the height.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the part that's up near the road now is like, pictures don't do it. You know, I've seen a million pictures. There's some incredible photographers out here.
You have to be down here.
It. When you see it in person, you're like, this is a huge, huge operation.
Absolutely. And
it's growing, like, exponentially.
I know, right? And there's so many misconceptions. People are like, is it free? How do I get a tour? And I'm like, you give it to yourself.
Yes, yes. And not 90, but actually on a given day, probably 50% of the cars coming down this road don't even know what this is. They think it's some oil factory thing. They have no idea.
That's crazy.
And that's great. That's the fun part of it. Like, the average person can be right here, and you see families out enjoying the beach, and some of them might have nothing to do with this.
Well, I was interviewed recently on Network News a little bit about Starship, and it really is something that I'm surprised more people don't know about or are talking about. Do you see that not enough people know about Starship, about the mission to Mars?
No idea. Yeah, they have. I mean, and it'll slap them in the face one day when this rocket is landing humans on the moon. I think it'll be the first big awakening of like, oh, that's what this is doing. But so far, the normal coverage is Elon Musk's giant rocket explodes again. You know, like, that's the headline, and people forget that SpaceX is more than one human. There's thousands of incredibly talented, hardworking engineers.
Yeah.
And that they don't understand that it's okay to fail, that's literally like the first goal, the first launch was like, get it off of the pad and don't have it blow up the pad. Anything beyond that's a success. And they see it's just like people forget that there's a prototype, the idea of a prototype, and that there's the idea of a test article. Like, that's what these are today. These are not, I'm not riding on that thing. I'm not riding on probably anything like that. By the time humans are flying on this thing, it'll be completely different. This is a freedom that the space shuttle did not have.
Yeah,
NASA, when they engineered the space shuttle, had to nail it because it required humans to fly it.
Right.
So if they didn't nail the engineering on that first flight, which they almost didn't, the first flight of the shuttle was within way too close calls. Like, there's a very good chance we would have lost John Young and I'm totally blanking on his name on the. Thank you, Griffin on the first I love. Thank you on the first launch. Like, it almost happened.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
And there was a risk posture they had to accept because that's the only way they could fly the shuttle to get data.
Yeah.
They don't have to do that. And they're not beholden to so many of the bureaucracies of flying on taxpayer money. SLS, even though it's completely uncrewed for its first flight, from the optics, if that had failed, would have been much more detrimental than this.
Right.
It's a different thing, and it shocks me that people don't understand that it's a different thing.
Right.
Like, when people do a complete, and I'm guilty of doing an A/B comparison of systems like this, but like, you have to put them each into their own perspective because they are completely different programs, completely different systems, and with different goals in the long run.
Right, and that is why you and I have channels, and we're trying to inform the masses.
Trying to teach you guys. Yeah,
awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for the interview.
My pleasure,
it's great to see you
yes,
again.
Enjoy the beach. Make sure and wear sunscreen, everyone. I just schlepped up again. I'm half as shiny as a pearl out here, but yeah, sunscreen's important. Otherwise, it's not a fun day tomorrow.
Oh, and the bug spray. But it's pretty good so far, actually.
Helps,
surprisingly, the wind helps. Thank you so much,
of course,
Tim.
Good seeing you.
Everyday Astronaut, if you don't follow him, but I'm sure you do. So
I do see a shirt over there.
Awesome.
Nice shirt.
Thank you so much. Thank you, seriously. Okay, so for everyone who said I wasn't live, that was me playing an exclusive interview with Tim Dodd yesterday, aka the Everyday Astronaut, because we're having a bit of delays here, but we're still hopeful that Starship is going to go. So I'm still live. I thought that you guys would enjoy that, and I'm going to be sharing that in a video, but I decided to show you guys first. Decided to show you guys first because I thought you would enjoy it, and it sounds like a lot of you did.
So as you can see, it's still quite foggy out there. It has definitely lightened up. However, it's still very overcast. But the fog isn't necessarily going to stop the launch or ruin things this morning. SpaceX has started loading the propellant, so we are, on our way to a launch. And the more into the process they get, if for some reason, I'm not even going to say the S word, but if for some reason something happens, then they will have to probably wait another 48 hours. So good thing I'm here until Saturday. But Joe Tagmeyer, we're back on air. A lot of people thought that we weren't live, but we were just taking a little break and showing you something great. So how is the service, by the way? Let me know how the service is. Thank you for all of the super chats that are rolling in. Hard to believe, but we have over 6,000 people watching. I've never had more than 1,400. So I hope that some of you guys can super chat. It really does help. And I will bring it up periodically. I will also show you guys once again, everywhere I go, this gets so much interest. And this is the 3D printed Starship. The link is in the comments somewhere. So this is something that you can assemble yourself. It's a venting Starship, aka humidifier. But let's talk about the action that unfortunately you're not able to see right now, but is going on. And let me share the window again. Joe, tell us what's going on.
Well, the good news is we're getting pretty deep now into the countdown towards T0, which is still at 8:25 Central Time, which would be 13:25 UTC. Propellant loading has begun on both the ship and the booster now. The ship starts actually a little bit early, which is something you wouldn't maybe expect. You'd think they do the booster first, but they start with the ship most likely because it's higher in the altitude, so it takes more to pump it up. So they'll start with that, and about 10 minutes later, which is already happening now, the booster should start fueling. The vents on the tower and on the orbital launch pad have closed, which means that they are now putting the propellant into the booster and the ship, which is great. That will continue for quite some time until about 3 to 2 minutes before launch, and then the fueling will begin. Will stop. At about 20 minutes before launch, we'll start doing the Raptor chill down, and that will continue for several minutes, and that's just to make sure that the proper temperature for the turbines and the ship plumbing and everything is where it needs to be, because you don't want to put cryogenic fluids into a warm engine. So they're going to start that at about 19 minutes, and then also just want to remind everybody that there is a built-in possible 40-second hold. So if we get to the countdown to 40 and then they hold, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's a problem. It means that they're just checking to make sure everything else is ready to go, and probably they're in the winds.
Well, that happened last time, right?
It did.
So I was actually kind of shocked when it went last time. I thought that we were SOL, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's going. So I know that there was some concern about the weather today, and we thought it would be Friday, but maybe we were wrong. Well, maybe I was wrong.
It's hard to say. I mean, there's what you can not see with the visibility, so that's an issue, but mostly for visual tracking and photography. If they decide that that's okay, then the next issue is winds, and it's not really the winds here on the ground level that's so bad. It's up in the sky. So the upper level winds, where you go through max Q and you do the separation, is the concern. So they're still monitoring that as well. 8:25 gives them about 35 more minutes left in the window, so they could slip it some more. And Starship,
but there's a cutoff.
There is. At 9 o'clock they have to stop, and that has to do with airspace and other constraints on them beyond just the ship. And
so can they launch, let's say, 8:57?
They could. They could launch at 8:59 and 59 seconds and technically be okay. So we could get to the 40-second hold and hold for a while. And that's actually a difference between Falcon 9 and Starship. Whereas Falcon 9, if it got to that point and they had to do a hold, it's either going to be a scrub or they're going to have to delay quite some time to reset. With the Starship, they can actually hold it at that point for an extended period of time. I don't know if it's like 30 minutes or so, I can't remember, but that would be enough to get to the end of the window. So we might see that.
That would be awesome.
SpaceX said propellant load of Starship's upper stage is now underway. And they tweeted prop load of Super Heavy booster is underway.
Okay.
We're reporting there's frost rings.
Okay,
prop
also
load of Super Heavy booster underway, and we're seeing some frost
rings. Well, we're not seeing some
Well,
frost
we're not,
rings,
but
you
we
guys can see it. The SpaceX feed should start soon, so hopefully we get some better video here. I was thinking of sharing NSF, but I don't know if I'd get in trouble for that.
I mean, just the SpaceX should be fine because they're going to have some really great views. And what we just heard there with the ship and the booster and the frost rings showing up is very consistent with that 8:25 time. So, things looking great.
We're crossing our
Fingers.
fingers that third time is a charm. We got so close on the last one. So many things went better on IFT2 compared to IFT1, which was still a success, by the way. But even watching the launch, it was like kind of moving slow. It was a lot faster the second time. But let's talk about the hot staging this time and how we hope that they've resolved the issue that we had last time.
Right. Well, the hot staging last time actually worked pretty well. That's the separation of the ship and the booster. After that point is where things started having some difficulty, and we'll put our attention on the booster first. The idea then was once the separation had occurred that the booster would initiate a turnaround or a boost back, light the center 10 engines and the center ring 10 engines and the inner 3. The inner 3 and the 10 are able to relight in flight, unlike the outer 20, and they're able to gimbal or move to help direct the ship. And it was at that point where they started having problems. And there's been a lot of talk and speculation about that. CSI Starbase and Ryan Hansen Space did a great job with showing the slosh and the potential of that. But later on, SpaceX came out and they said it was really like a filter clogging, but they didn't say what it was clogging it. So it may have been clogged by parts of the inside of the ship that had been dislodged during that maneuver, and then it caused the problems with the engine. So today, if we can see it, maybe the SpaceX feed will be better. What we want to see is that flip around, the boost back, have all the engines light, and then be able to come back for a controlled landing in the Gulf about 20 kilometers. And in addition to doing possibly some new baffles inside the booster, it looks like they're probably going to do some sequencing changes, maybe wait longer before they try to relight the engines to make sure the fuel slosh is over, make sure that they don't have any clogging of the filters, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so we may see some differences, or at least we'll be aware of some differences today. And the experience with IFT2, even though it ended up in the booster exploding, is really critical to get those lessons so that they can make the changes.
So do we think they're going to meet all the mission objectives?
I certainly hope they do. I think it's critical that they do. As we mentioned before, IFT3 is very important to show that they can do most or all of their milestones. The thing I think they really want to do is not have a mishap happen, so they have to go through that investigation again. Because Ship 29 is ready to go.
Pretty much ready.
Booster 11's kind of ready to go. I think they want to get it back out there and try to get a launch as soon as possible, probably within the next month and a half.
Well, and even if you look at the first two launches, there were 63 corrective actions after the first one, only 17 after IFT2. So, the time in between launches is shortening. The amount of work to do and lessons to be learned is, hopefully improving. And we heard from Tim Dodd yesterday, as you just saw, Everyday Astronaut. He's fairly confident. So let's hope for the best.
Right. After IFT1 with those 63 fixes, some of those fixes actually applied to IFT2 as well. So it wasn't just we're going to fix the stuff on IFT2 from what I guess what I'm trying to say is there was some stuff that transcended more than just one booster, because they could fix some things and they said others was going to be into the future. So hopefully we'll see that here with this booster.
Right. Well, and we were meeting people down at Starbase yesterday. This is their first time down at Starbase. And a lot of people, this is their first rocket launch ever. What you've said is maybe unfortunate. Why is that?
Well, because rocket launches are really fun to see, but this is the biggest rocket ever. So if this is your first one, you're going to you expect everything is going to be like this.
Falcon 9s are still incredible to watch. If you remember to turn around. If you guys watch my channel, you'll know what I'm talking about. But that's one of the things is that the sound is delayed. So when we see the rocket launch, and by the time the sound reaches us is
probably about 25, 30 seconds.
30 seconds, and it is kind of
shocking to hear those booms.
Yeah, you know it's coming, but you don't know exactly when.
Yeah, right.
Now, I will just amend. I mean, with SLS and Blue Origin's New Glenn coming along, we have some pretty large rockets that are going to be launching too. So it's a really exciting time for space to be able to see these just gigantic rockets getting ready to be tested and operational.
Right, absolutely. So where are we at with the SpaceX stream starting?
Let me go check and see.
Oh, it looks like maybe it is up here. So I'm going to mute it. Just so that we don't have too much. Wow, almost 8,000 people are watching. Are you serious? This is incredible. Almost 8,000 people are watching. That's very crazy. Thank you guys for watching. Of course, we're going to keep streaming. We have Starlink to help us this morning, which is hopefully keeping the connection good. Again, shout out to Starlink. Shout out to Margaritaville for letting us stream up here with the pros who have the MX-25, the high-powered cameras. It looks like you want to say something.
People want to know how.
Yeah, so Starlink, it takes a little bit to get booted, and by a little bit I mean, up to 10 minutes. I had that working yesterday for the first time down at Starbase, and I was a little worried about if it was going to work because the service is so bad there. But once I got it booted and I was able to align the Starlink, that's one of the things with the next gen Starlinks is that they have a kickstand, so they don't have that motorized version that is able to orient itself. So luckily in the app, you click on the alignment tab and it's in real time. You're able to shift it and then get it aligned. You have to have it pointing the right direction for it actually to give you service. But once it's up and running, which another fun thing, we were able to power it using Joe's Cybertruck. So that was incredibly helpful. We are able to power this morning through Margaritaville's power, so that is also very helpful because Starlink does use a lot of power. But it is getting, again, a little bit better visibility here, but it's still probably impossible to see the tower for you guys on the screen. It's pretty hard for us to see it. I've been fogged out completely for one launch. It was the only time I've ever attempted to see a Falcon Heavy in person, and that was very sad because I traveled all the way from Portland to Florida, and then we had the cloaking device. So we're hoping that this continues to lighten up and we're able to see it. I see some people still making their way walking along the beach. I see the causeway is actually not too bad with still our cars coming through. And I don't know if you guys can see, but up ahead we have a bunch of people on the roof of Holiday Inn. They're paying $50 a piece to watch from the roof. And so the roof or your balcony can be a great view, but a lot of people wonder where you should go. And most people go to Isla Blanca Park, where you are basically on the edge of the exclusion zone. You're getting as close as you can to see it while still being safe. I was surprised the number of people that asked us yesterday, are you able to stay here at Starbase and watch the launch? No, even if there weren't any exclusion zone and they didn't kick you out, you wouldn't want to be there because accidents can happen. So how's it going, Joe? What's the update? It looks like SpaceX has started their feed, so we have that simultaneously running here. It is live. It's live.
Yeah.
And where are we at?
Well, the visibility over there is actually at the launch pad and around the Starship is quite good. It's kind of like a fog wall between us and it right now. But they're about approximately 30 minutes away from the T0 fuel, and the propellant loading is still going on pretty well. One of the important things to remind everybody is even though there's some significant milestones that they want to achieve, this is still a prototype launch. So there's going to be a lot to learn. Some things may or may not go exactly as planned, but that does not mean anything other than they're learning a lot and they're getting ready for the next one. And that's one of the reasons why they need that launch cadence this year and hopefully not having the mishap stuff so they can get it back out the next one and go.
Well, we know that they wanted to launch 9 times, but I saw Elon, post recently that they might be shooting for 6 after all. So, it's already, I guess, almost April. So, depending on how soon they can get back up and running.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see how many times we actually launch Starship this year.
Yeah, and we talked about that a little bit earlier, and part of it has to do with the production, they have enough ships to do, I think it's 4 or 5 flights already. But the interesting thing is the ones that are built right now are the last of the version 1s. And they're going to be switching to version 2. And we don't have all of the details what it's going to be, but it will be different. And they're going to have to build that and at least have one of them to launch this year to get to those 6 if they are able to do that.
So we're seeing about T minus 28 minutes.
Approximately.
Well, that's good.
So, okay. Well, we'll take a look at what we're showing on the.
Apparently, maybe it's
screen.
not working.
Okay, but we're about 28 minutes away, and as I mentioned, the visibility over at the launch pad itself looks pretty decent. Of course, when it launches and it heads off to the east, it's going to go into the clouds. But there are a lot of assets here to try to do the visual capture of it. Some of them are actually out in the Gulf of Mexico right now, and they're positioned to try to image the booster when it comes back. There are also some aviation assets that should be flying above the clouds and give us some visibility as well. And hopefully we'll see that maybe through the SpaceX feed.
Well, shout out to my boyfriend for realizing that the SpaceX feed was not live. I've refreshed it and now it's live.
Okay, now it is live. So hopefully you're able to see some of what we've been talking about, at least out there.
Well, what we're seeing is there are some broadcasters on screen. So I'm just keeping it going because we want to have the launch, you know, in the window and up here. So,
and of course, right now they're showing my favorite. It's a drone shot flying across over towards the launch site. And if you know me, I'm a drone guy. I would love to be flying out there. That would be outstanding.
Well, you said that they've actually extended the restriction zone.
They have. They since the last flight, they added a drone restricted zone over Isla Blanca Park, which is new. They expanded the temporary flight restriction around the orbital launch site a little longer or wider. And then they also have a departure corridor going out into the Gulf. And those are all active right now. There's also another one over Massey's. So if you ever think that you're going to go out to Massey's, it's too far away, we can go ahead and fly a drone. You can't. There's actually a TFR there as well.
Well, and if you roll up there, they're politely going to ask you to leave.
Right.
We've tried that. But we were able to get at least a little bit of footage, and we know that that site is also developing and hoping to have some, you know, new additions to what they're doing down there.
Right.
Soon.
They have some significant capability changes there. Not only can they do cryogenics, but they're also adding the ability to do static fires too. And the importance of that is that they will be able to do all that testing without disrupting the public access to the beach, and also without disrupting the work that they're doing out at the orbital launch site. So it's really great for them to have that.
Well, and we walked behind the dunes yesterday, and you pointed out to me, we know that there's 2 towers confirmed. We know that segments have been arriving from the Cape here to South Texas, but you think you know the location of the second tower, which is pretty close to the first one.
It is. It's not exactly where the suborbital pad is right now. It's a little bit farther away, actually close to the Gateway to Mars wall. But they're doing all the piles, the preparation for the ground support and to be able to build the launch tower and orbital launch site there. So it's really cool.
We see a familiar face. We are live. We have 9,000 people watching.
Okay.
We have a couple crews up here, so we are not the only ones, but we are very thankful to be here at Margaritaville. I'll do a little bit of a flash here. And, you know, I've recommended this. This opened actually 2 weeks before the first launch in April. You know, a great resort here and a great place to view the launch. Even though if you can't go on the roof, you can see a great view from your balcony. And many of the balconies here. You have a room in sort of an Airbnb, and you would have a view too.
Exactly.
So there's many ways to do it. I'm trying to let people know it's spring break right now. The prices are jacked up, but there are still rooms. A lot of people said it would be sold out completely, and this one is actually almost to occupancy, but there's a lot of possibilities on STI.
Exactly. And the big key is, if you're going to be here, is get here early in the morning, because the traffic is kind of out of control.
Yeah, we had a couple people say, well, I thought Isla Blanca Park opened at 8, and no, they know they're on their A game. They open up around 5 for the launches. This is not their first rodeo, so they know that that's where a lot of people go, and they'll be They'll be ready for you. I
Right.
think it's $12 to drive in.
Something like that.
It's
If you
not
have
too
military
expensive.
ID, I think it's $5.
Okay.
And IFT one, the first attempt, really I think opened their eyes as far as the access coming in there because they were just overwhelmed. So now they're actually opening it a little bit earlier.
And so where are we at with time?
We are about 23 minutes away. That means that we're about 4 minutes away from the Raptor chill beginning. And that will progress through most of the rest of the launch and the countdown. And then somewhere around 3 minutes to 2 minutes is when they will finish up the propellant loading on the ship and the booster. And that'll get us really close. And as we mentioned before, there is a built-in opportunity to do a hold at 40 seconds. So that may be the next milestone after propellant loading is completed.
Right, which don't freak out. They did that last
Exactly,
time. They
exactly.
still launched. But it always freaks me out a little bit. I'm like, please, let's do it. But if they can successfully launch today, we've had some pretty notable dates with 420, with Pi Day. Hopefully we're able to achieve that because they're memorable.
Right.
Maybe we'll have 669 for June.
It could be. Yeah. No, speaking of watching the launch, we're going to do what we can. We have SpaceX and a lot of other assets doing that. Interestingly enough, we were told that there's really no visual assets out in the Indian Ocean to watch the landing.
That was surprising.
So I don't know what we're going to find out about that other than SpaceX telemetry. Or maybe they'll release some footage from the ship.
But also, are we sure about that?
Well, we'll find out.
Yeah, right.
We'll find out. But the good thing about that, if there were assets out at the Indian Ocean, is it's going to be in daylight. So it should be really good viewing of the ship coming down. And I'm sure, at the very least, if everything goes well, the reentry is going to be bright enough that we're going to have people all over the world taking pictures and posting it on social media.
However, I was hoping originally they slated the launch window to open at 7 a.m., which would have been 38 minutes before sunrise. And I was hoping to see the blue methane streaks and have a bit of a night launch because they are beautiful.
Yeah, I think that would have been both cool but frustrating because we would hear it, but we might not have even seen it at that time.
That's true.
But having a night launch at some point in the future would be awesome. Can you imagine a 300-meter long blue flame coming off the bottom of the ship?
It is still so hard to see the tower. Can you make it out?
No,
I really can't. I don't even see like the blinking light.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is we can actually see across the channel.
Yeah,
we can see part of the other part of the land. And there's a big lake kind of there. So we're about seeing that. But that would still mean we have about another 2.5 miles of visibility between us and the launch site.
So we may only hear most of the sounds for this one. We don't know. If everything goes according to plan and, we're getting very close right now.
If you have the live stream of SpaceX, we'll at least be able to have something like that too.
Absolutely.
But if everything goes well and it launches, as we said, it'll be about 25 seconds before we'll hear the sound. Or at our location, we're about 6 miles away, just to the due north on South Padre Island.
Wow. So not even that much further than Isla Blanca
Not
Park.
really, just maybe about a mile or so.
Yeah.
If you get down there, the sounds would be slightly better, but there's been people at Brownsville, which is 20 miles away, and they say that they felt like an earthquake was going off.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That's crazy.
So about 20 minutes. So we're about a minute away from the Raptor chill beginning.
Over 10,000 people.
That's awesome.
What?
That is awesome. Thank you very much.
I have to make the plea again. Please super chat. There's over 10,000 of you. $1 or $2 goes a long way. So if you guys are enjoying the stream, which I would assume you are because you're watching it, this is a record. I've only seen 1,400 people ever on a stream. So thank you guys for watching, and thank you to Joe. Joe, you may know him primarily for Giga Texas coverage, but gosh, do you know your stuff when it comes to rockets because you wanted to be an astronaut.
Yeah, that was my background. That was my dream. That's what I studied. That's all the things that I did in my career is to try to lead to that point. So
I feel very grateful that you have been willing to co-host with me for all 3 Starship launches now. And I think hopefully we're providing good commentary and good information for you guys at home. I know that we have people all around the globe watching, traveling here to Starbase, but it's hard to get here for some people, getting the time off, making sure that you're here at the right time. I've met people that have had to leave the day before the launch due to work stuff. So we're hoping to, provide you with as much of a in-person experience as we can.
Right.
And it's nice weather today.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
it's very sultry, like humid. Yeah,
it is humid. Your hands get so sticky here, and my hair is a mess. But
so, are there any questions from some of the viewers?
Are there any questions?
What are the changes from this rocket relative to the last launch?
Okay.
So the question is, what are the changes from the last IFT2 combination to this one, which is Ship 28 Booster 10?
Well, as far as the booster, there were already a lot of changes in the works anyway. So. But some of the biggest changes is it appears that more baffles were put into the booster itself, and that was to help with some of the sloshing. And I think we're going to see some procedure sequencing differences after the hot stage. But in a lot of ways, Booster 10 and 9 are similar. They both had the electric thrust vector controls. They had a lot of the upgrades. So this one should be, it should go as well as Booster 9 did. The ship, there are some significant changes. One of the biggest is that Ship 25 had the hydraulic thrust vector controls. And that and a few other things within the engine compartment may have been contributing to the fires that when they did the LOX dump caused the loss of the ship. For Ship 28, they've gotten rid of that, and they actually have the electric thrust vector controls, very similar to the booster now, much simpler. None of the hydraulic issues. It actually weighs a little bit less, but also more reliable. So that is one of the biggest things. There's also a number of other changes within the ship as well, but that's primarily what we're going to be looking for. They did have some of the ship engines removed. They did some work within the ship engine compartment. So it's possible that they did some shielding changes based on the lessons learned from Ship 25 as well. So I think Ship 28's in a much better position to be successful than 25 was.
Well, and I think between the first and second launch, Elon said there were over 1,000 changes. So hopefully less this time, because that could be a good and a bad thing.
Right. Like I said, the biggest change probably for Booster 10 is those baffles that they were added. And we're kind of speculating that's what's happened because there's new weld marks that were put on the booster that weren't there before, and it suggests that they've added something.
So where are we at right now?
We're at about
minus 16 minutes.
Yep.
Wow, the view looks great from their feed.
Yeah, booster.
Good enough, at least.
Yeah, the Raptor chill should be well underway, and it looks like both the booster and the ship are quite frosty. I would say just by eyeballing it here, they're maybe about 50 to 60% completed with doing the refueling right now, or the propellant load. And that gives us about another 13 minutes. Great shot from SpaceX of the Raptors from underneath the orbital site. You can actually see if you can see on the live stream, you can see some of the vapors coming out. That's part of that Raptor chill, which is underway. And again, this propellant loading will continue for another about 13 minutes or so. And with the upgraded pumps that they have for the cryogenics, it really is speeding up the loading process, and it's markedly better than what we saw with the IFT1 or 2 as well.
Right. Man, I'm so hopeful. I'm still a little nervous. Yeah. There's always a little bit of nerves, at least for me. I don't know for you. We just want it to go well.
Yeah, I want it to go well for SpaceX, for NASA, and just for the space community. There's so many things that have yet to be proven. This is a step along that way. And, I really do hope that they're very successful.
Yeah, definitely.
What changes have you seen to the launch pad yesterday?
Okay.
So the question is, yesterday we were able to get very close to the launch pad. In fact, you had got very close. Okay. And so what are some of the changes that we have seen?
Okay. Well, some of the biggest ones is the vertical tank farms, the original tanks. 2 of them were removed because of damage. They were really heavily damaged after IFT1, and then the pressure waves damaged them again after IFT2. So they removed 2. They've brought in some more water tanks, some vaporizers, which basically takes the cryogenics and turns it into a gas, is what you need. They did some significant reinforcing of 2 other tanks that were also damaged in the previous launches. And these are much more substantial. They've also added a lot more of the horizontal tanks, much more capacity. In fact, that's something that I'm kind of speculating a little bit, but I think that they've added overall more capacity for the cryogenics. So if they were to scrub today, they may actually now have enough capability without having to bring a lot of tanker trucks in to launch again tomorrow.
Right, which would be a huge improvement.
Exactly. And that's sort of speculation on my part, but there is significantly more capacity there. Of course, we mentioned the added pumps. That is really speeding up the ability to do the refilling or the propellant load. They did some work on the orbital launch mount as well. They've actually removed some shielding underneath where the clamp arms are and the quick disconnects. They did some refurbishing of the ship quick disconnect. It was partially damaged, at least one of the hydraulic rams after the last flight, and they've done a lot of other work. They've done a lot of work with the booster quick disconnect and the housing that closes the clamshell. So they did a lot of work on that as well. So there's been a good amount of work on the orbital launch site and the support facilities.
Well, and the biggest changes, of course, to the OLM and to the pad were between 1 and 2.
Exactly. Well, the first launch did a lot of the excavation for them, and so they had a head start on doing all that. But with the water deluge plates, the very heavy supports underneath it, it's kind of eliminated the issue with the concrete tornado that we saw.
So right now, SpaceX on their feed has a render of HLS on the screen.
Right.
So that's one of the many reasons that we need Starship to succeed, not just to go to Mars,
Right.
which is probably the reason most of you guys know, but also SpaceX won that contract from NASA for HLS, the Human Landing System.
Right. Now, the interesting thing is if you look at the current timelines, sometime in probably middle or late 2025, SpaceX is on contract to do a demonstration landing on the moon. And that's without people on it, but they need to show that capability. And then if that goes well, right now, September 2026 would be the first astronauts on the HLS landing on the moon. And Ellie and I have talked about this on a previous live stream. But one of the interesting questions about that is they have to have legs and they have to land. So at some point, I think they're going to have to demonstrate or test the landing capability. Right. And where that's going to be, I don't know, because there's not a landing pad out there anymore.
Well, we know that, for the chopsticks, the idea was no legs.
We can almost see the tower now. Actually, you can just barely see just a little vertical right over there.
Oh
it's
my gosh.
very, very hard to see.
It's still very hard to see for me.
But it may be, we have 11 more minutes. If it does launch, we will probably be able to see the light from it.
We'll see like a little flicker.
I think it's actually not bad.
If it were going that way, which it's not, it goes that way.
Actually off to the east, the trajectory looks like it'll be above the cloud deck over the water right now. And then the next deck is, I'm going to estimate about 8,000 to 10,000 feet. So we should see quite a bit. And if it continues to break up over the next 10 minutes, we should be good.
Look at how fast the clouds are moving. It's really crazy. Another question, you went a little bit internet famous for this, is are we going to go on a tile scavenger hunt? You've started a craze.
Well, that's actually a good question. Ship 25 is kind of notorious for losing a lot of the tiles. And some of that is because honestly, I don't think the tile adhesion and everything was super high priority for them. But for this one, it has been. Ship 28's tiles have apparently much better mounting points. They've have better adhesive on the welding lines. So I hope that we don't have very many tiles, at least not around here, because that would indicate that they're on that process of solving that issue.
Of course we want them to solve it, but you have to admit it is kind of cool to have one
in
your collection.
It is. Assuming that it goes on its trajectory, everything is fine. Probably, at least initially, the best places to find any that fall off are right over at Boca Chica Beach, right next to the launch pad.
You were in the right place at the right time. You have a perfect half of a tile.
Yeah. From Ship 24, and I found it about an hour or so after the launch.
Yeah.
It was very amazing.
Well, you were walking over to meet me, so I'm not going to say I helped you, but I'm just kidding. Okay, so we are less than 10 minutes away.
Exactly.
Still very, very hard to see it from here, but at least we can see it on the SpaceX feed.
Propellant loading is somewhere close to about 85% for the booster and the ship now. That's about consistent with what we would expect at this time. We got about another 6 minutes of loading until they get to the point where they should be full. So we're still, fingers crossed, we're still looking pretty good.
Wow. I can't believe it. Every time it's like, I can't believe we're here right now.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
What is SpaceX hoping to achieve with this one?
What is
SpaceX is hoping to achieve a long list of things.
Right. So a few things to look for is a successful launch and departing from the tower. That's always important. They want to get up to the hot staging and booster separation and ship like they did before, but now they want to be able to do the reorientation, the boost back, and the controlled landing in the Gulf of the booster. And that should happen, I have to look at the timeline, but probably about 8 minutes after launch. If all goes well, the booster will be back into the water controlled. And then the ship will continue on. They want to achieve orbit or very close to orbital velocity and the orbital parameters. They want to be able to show that they can do a tip tank transfer, which is transferring propellant from the header tanks into the main tanks. That's sort of a precursor of showing about in-orbit refueling. They want to test opening and closing the payload door and, of course, relighting the Raptor so they can do deorbit burn. And then, of course, the reentry, see how those tiles we were talking about work. And then, of course, the energetic splashdown in the Indian Ocean. And then the last thing is stage 0, the ground support that we were just talking about. It needs to survive and be in a position that they can rapidly turn that as well.
Right. Well, and we do plan to go back, hopefully the road reopens quickly like it did last time and do a little bit of a survey, afterwards. And obviously all of these, objectives that they have, we won't be able to see all of those today.
Yeah. Well, actually, I mean, especially if we get some feeds from SpaceX, we should have a really good idea of what's going on with all of it. Because from launch to the ship landing in the Indian Ocean is only about 45 minutes.
That's
and as crazy. I mentioned, the booster should be back in the water here. And I don't know if we'll be able to see it. It's about 20 kilometers away, but about 8 minutes or so after launch.
That's kind of crazy.
So we're about 6.5 minutes away from launch right now. So about 3 minutes away from propellant load completion.
Both of you have been to quite a few launches. What's the difference between like a Starship launch and another type of launch you've seen?
Both of us have been to other rocket launches, but what would you say is the difference between other launches, like, say, Falcon 9 or something, and Starship?
So I've seen a couple of Falcon 9s. They're obviously not as loud. They're not as big and bright. I would compare this the best to SLS, and I was able to see that in November of, was it 2022?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So
I've been doing this a long time. Not really. SLS was really interesting because we sort of had a reverse eclipse effect, which we're going to see that pretty soon here over Texas. But the idea that it went from nighttime to daytime with how bright the launch was. This one is also, fairly bright, but I think what's most impactful is the sound. It's incredibly loud. And I just think that this is, that we're such an infancy stage with Starship, and so being a part of this before it becomes clockwork cadence like we see with the Falcon 9, I think it's cool to say you were a part of it.
Well, one of the other things is at Cape Canaveral, even with the Falcon 9s, you have to be farther away than even what we're seeing here. So we have a much more powerful rocket at a closer distance.
Right.
So that really helps change things as well. But, if we ever see a Starship night launch, that's going to be just incredible.
It's going to be incredible. And part of that is because of the blue that you're going to see. And that is because of the methane streaks.
Right.
So,
exactly.
That is one of the things that we're seeing more, relativity using methane.
Blue Origin.
Believe Land Space.
And Vulcan, too.
Yeah. So we're starting to see that more and more as a trend. And why is that?
Well, part of it is that methane is a really good choice for a rocket fuel in general. It's not necessarily the best for going onto the moon because the moon doesn't have a lot of carbon that we can access. We could get water, we could get the hydrogen and the oxygen, but But to make methane, you have basically 1 atom of carbon, 4 atoms of hydrogen, so CH4. So the moon, maybe not so much, but on Mars, we can get a lot of the methane there pretty easy using the Sabatier process.
In situ resources,
exactly.
Sabatier process. So we're able to essentially make rocket fuel on Mars.
Exactly.
Which is going to help us because it's a long journey.
Yeah.
And what is fuel? It's heavy. It's hard to transport. So if we're able to use those resources, not only for making fuel on Mars, but also some of the resources to 3D print houses, let's say, using the material on Mars, we might be in pretty good shape.
Exactly. And methane is a great fuel choice for that. Also, methane in general is pretty cost effective, and it's a clean burning fuel, and that's one of the secrets to the Raptors being able to have the rapid reuse. Is it doesn't get that carbon soot that you see on the Falcon 9s, both on the booster itself, but also within the engine itself too. So that needs some refurbishment after each of the flights.
By the way, one of the changes that we have today is we're using Starlink, so that's going to help the stream. But another change is I'm not going to scream into the mic.
Oh, okay.
It's very hard not to scream, and we're all human, and it's going to elicit some sort of a response. But I'll try my best to not scream into the mic.
Okay. So we have about just under 3 minutes, so propellant loading should be wrapping up now. Did you want to reset your camera?
Yeah. So what I tend to do is I have a shot on us so that we can see the oohs and the ahs. And let's see here. I'm just going to put it here. Let's see if we can raise it up a little bit. We are what? Less than 3 minutes away, huh?
You might want to move it just a little bit off this camera here. There you go. Yep, 2 minutes and 20 seconds or so. So now all of the propellant loading on the ship and the booster should be completed. And we're progressing quite nicely towards the last few minutes of the launch. So hopefully, I mean, it is clearing enough from this vantage point for us to see maybe the general area of where the launch tower is going to be. But I think if it does launch, we'll at least be able to see the light from here. And of course, with the live streaming from SpaceX, you should get some really nice shots too. In fact, looking at that live stream right now, you can see quite a bit of venting going on. That's actually very normal. This is clearing out a lot of the pipes that have been supporting the refueling or the propellant load of the Starship, and they're clearing that out because they need all the pipes empty for the launch so that they don't have any problems with the cryogenics within the pipes. So that is why you're seeing all of those clouds coming off of the ship right now.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
We are so close.
We're about 80 seconds away. As a reminder, 40 seconds, they have a built-in hold point, so we may actually see that. And that doesn't mean anything is wrong, and it could last a few minutes. It could last a few seconds. So we'll see what SpaceX does, but we're only a minute away.
We can't see it. Okay, we can't see it.
Wow, this is really exciting. 50 seconds left. We're 10 seconds away from that possible hold point.
Over 11,400
That is
people.
awesome.
So you guys, thank you for watching. That could be more people supporting me, or it could be more people caring about Starship.
Now, I don't know if this was a delayed or if it, actually 35, 34, we've passed the 40-second hold point.
Holy crap.
So they are progressing right now for the launch. And I think we'll just stop the commentary so you can take a look at the
so that we can take a
launch, and about 25 seconds later you'll hear it from our point of view. 5, 4.
Oh my gosh!
They've lit it.
Yes, you can see it, Joe. We can kind of see it. Oh, look.
Awesome.
Yes.
And there's the sound. The exhaust looks great again. We have those shock diamonds. We can feel safety. Excellent onboard camera views. Absolutely stunning view. There it is up there. All 33 are still firing.
Oh my
They're going
God.
through max Q right now. You can tell with the vapors coming off of it. That means that they are supersonic and at the highest stress point. And continuing, still all 33 engines are firing.
Oh, yes. It's so cool.
About 15 kilometers in altitude, almost 2,000 kilometers, or about 1,700 kilometers per hour.
Oh my
And
God.
the skies actually have cleared up for us, at
Absolutely
least in the
beautiful.
upper part of the sky. So excellent. Unbelievable views from SpaceX.
Wow.
Great
Oh my
views
gosh.
from the ship looking down towards the booster.
Ooh.
You can see the grid fins on that. Again, still all 33 engines are going. 31 kilometers in altitude. That's just outstanding. We're getting close to the point where we're going to see the hot staging. We're about 20 seconds away from that, give or take. And it is still progressing quite well. 40 kilometers. I think the hot staging will be somewhere around 60 kilometers. So we're about 14 kilometers away from that. All engines still firing. So excellent. 56, 50. We're getting very close to most engine cutoff.
Starship has cleared the pad.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Okay.
SpaceX tweet.
65 kilometers. We should be very, very close to the hot staging now. They just shut down the engines.
Look,
The three center ones are going.
Okay. Come on, please be
Hot
good.
staging. Booster separation.
Okay, please hang in there.
All
Hang in
6
there.
engines of the Starship are going.
Wow. It's amazing that we have that real-time data. It's
Incredible views from
no.
SpaceX. Here I go. All 10 of the booster engines are working.
wow.
The boost back is going. All 6 of the ship engines are working as well. And the booster is definitely doing, they did the flip maneuver. The engines are still firing. They actually gained altitude during the boost back. That is normal. And it is heading back towards the launch site. They're at 100 kilometers for the booster, 102 for the ship. All engines are working. The booster, some of the engines are now shutting down. It looks like they've shut down all of the booster engines now. So that would indicate possibly that the boost back is complete. And now we should see how the booster comes back.
4 minutes into the flight.
Yeah, and if all goes well with the booster, we may hear the shock wave when it comes back in, as we see with the.
We're not going to be able to see it, right?
But we will probably hear it.
Okay.
Okay. So the ship is continuing on its flight. The booster is picking
Super
up
heavy
speed.
boost back burn complete.
Awesome. Yep.
SpaceX tweeting as much as they can.
So we see the booster altitude dropping. That's good. That means it has hit the apogee, or the highest point, and it is now coming back for its landing. Very similar to what we see with the Falcon 9s. The speed's increasing, which is what we expect as it's losing altitude. It's passing through the Kármán line again, which is great to see. The ship itself, all of the engines are still firing. They're nearly 10,000 kilometers per hour, 132 kilometers. That's about 17,000 kilometers to go for them to hit the orbital velocity, but it is going extremely well. The views from SpaceX is awesome.
So far, third time is looking like a charm.
So far, so good. We got some booster views right now. We're at 85 kilometers. You can see the the gas thrusters being used. They're actually using the gas, which is the pressurized gas within the tanks for the maneuvering, and that appears to be working. So that's another major milestone that has been achieved already. The ship is continuing, all 6 engines firing. They're almost at 12,000 kilometers per hour. So that is still looking outstanding as well. I don't know what the altitude is for the booster to initiate the reentry burn, if there is one, or what time they're going to do that. Let me get
Just
back
leave
to
them
the
up.
screen. But they're at 50 kilometers now, and I'm looking at the sky. We should start seeing it because 20 kilometers is not too far away from us. You can still see the gas thrusters working on the booster. The ship is now at about 14,000 kilometers per hour. So we're about 10,000 kilometers per hour slower than what ship 25 reached. The grid fins are now working on the booster, so that's helping to steer it. They're at about 15 kilometers altitude. We should be able to see
It looks
something.
like it's getting pretty close.
I'm scanning the skies right now.
If we don't see it, we will hear it.
We should. They're entering the cloud deck now.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. Oh my gosh. You guys, it is incredible that we are able to see all of this.
There's a lot of motion with the booster, so they
Yeah.
may be having some issues with it.
Do we need a duck? I'm just kidding.
It looks like
awaiting acquisition of signal. It looks like it's back.
there's at least
maybe
one
the
engine.
visibility is rough.
I don't know. It looks like they tried to light an engine, at least one, or one maybe
so now
going.
we don't see that feed.
So it looks like it's impacted the water or what. So I don't know what happened to the booster. The ship is continuing. We'll focus on the ship right now. All engines still firing. They're at 20,000 kilometers per hour, 4,000 kilometers per hour short of what ship 25 did, 144 kilometers. So they are, 45 kilometers above the carbon line right now. My guess is watching that video that they had some issues with controllability of the booster. But the ship is still going.
Turning it off on purpose, or did they lose the feed?
I think it probably impacted the ground, but the water is my
I hope
thought.
not the ground.
But
oh, I like the green hats. Lucky St. Patrick's Day.
So we're now past the velocity that ship 25 hit. We are only about
awaiting acquisition of signal.
Okay, that would be fine. The telemetry is still coming on. We're about 1,500 kilometers per hour from orbital velocity at 148 kilometers. You can actually see what it looks to be some of the thrusters working on the ship, plus the plume from the Raptors. And it looks like engine cutoff. We're right at really close to orbital velocity. Probably they want it to be a little bit less so that they have a reentry profile. But it looks to me like they've had a successful orbital insertion of the ship. So the time has passed for the booster. So we've already talked about that. But we didn't
hear it.
It may have been just the winds, the distance, or just what it was going on. We'll have to wait and find out what SpaceX shows on that. But we are about 30 minutes more of the flight for the...
Okay, Raptor engine burn is complete and Starship has entered a coast phase. Thank you, SpaceX, for updating us.
Yeah, that is awesome. So that's confirming what we're seeing with the telemetry on the live stream right now. So
far, many of the mission objectives,
they have. More than one. Orbit is great, or at least the orbital velocity. The next couple of tests were going to be that tip tank transfer. I don't know when they're going to do that, but that's great. We see, some good orbit messages coming in. Then they're going to try to do the door, and of course, lighting that Raptor again for the deorbit. All that's coming up.
See the door?
I don't know if they're going to show it. They're showing us a lot with the video right now, a lot more than we saw before.
It's incredible. It is crazy that we're able to see this.
It is.
You guys, this is nuts. What a time to be alive. Excitement guaranteed.
Yeah, this is truly amazing. Obviously, all of this
over 10 minutes in.
Exactly. All of this is new for everybody. So we're watching to see what happens with you guys.
Yeah, it's wow.
But if you ever see some of the really nice renders that some of the great render artists that do Starship shots, this looks like one, but this is for real, and
I
a
know.
nice shot of the Earth on the top part of the
Wow.
screen. You can see the flaperon or the flaps. From what I can tell, most of the at least from this angle, most of the tiles seem to
Yeah.
be intact.
By the way, we just saw a notification that Starlink has hit 2.6 million subscribers,
That's awesome.
including me. And
Wow.
that's why we have this stream. That's actually working.
That is awesome.
Things are all working today.
Knock on wood. Keep our fingers crossed.
Yes.
Still some big milestones to achieve coming
Right.
up. But for those that look at when they go to the ISS, for example, you would notice that we're about 75, 80 kilometers lower than the altitude that would be, but that again is fine. I think that they really want to keep the apogee perigee low for this so that they can do all their test objectives.
Well, is that why they changed from saying orbital flight test or test flight orbital to integrated test flight?
Yeah, because
there was
technically it's not
Conjecture about
not orbital,
Yeah.
but it's not that it couldn't do it. I think they intentionally want to do that because they need to be able to be sure that it's going to re-enter in a controlled manner, even if they don't have engine control. So, but I'm sure that they are getting a ton of data right now. If you notice, you'll see that the altitude is going up a little bit. That could be normal with the type of orbit that they're in. The speed is dropping a little bit, which is fine, which means you're basically trading your speed for altitude. And that would be expected with this type of orbit. And then, of course, at some point, we'll see the altitude stop, and then it will start coming down. And that means that we passed the apogee or the highest point of the orbit, and now we're starting to go down towards...
Do we see Elon in the control room? I don't see him. I'm surprised.
I don't know. Jesse Anderson, very common on the live streams to SpaceX, just said, let's go. So I know she's excited, and congratulations to all the SpaceX employees. This
Eric
is awesome.
Berger says, quite possible that the next flight of Starship will be operational and we'll see some Starlink deployment.
That would be awesome. Not only because of the first time and testing and data, but Starship is designed to bring a lot more Starlinks, and that's to basically have that generation of revenue, and that it's a commercial spacecraft, and that's what it's for. So that's great to see. Altitude still goes up, and you can see the speed a little bit coming down. Again, it looks like it's still heading on the upward part of the orbit, which is outstanding. So 13 minutes in, so still another 27 minutes to go. So
and again, over 11,000 people watching. So thank you for all of the super chats. If you are able to super chat and you're enjoying our coverage, please do so. It really does help out.
Yeah. Are there any questions from the viewers that we might be able to? Okay.
No
well, if you have any questions, let us know. We'll try our best to answer them. But right now, this is...
Do you agree that it was a little quieter than the second one?
Yes, and part of the reason is the wind. The wind is blowing from us towards the launch pad.
Like, it was loud, but the last time I was like, I was like scared.
We're getting a feed from SpaceX. You should be seeing it as well. It's from the inside of the Starship looking up, and you can see the platform that they would have the Starlinks, which means that they may be showing us the door opening. So another one of those milestones that they want to achieve for this
but no
flight.
cupola.
No cupola this time. Maybe someday they'll have like a wall of glass on the tip of the Starship. But
this is so good.
So the altitude still is going up. So they're still heading towards the apogee. So 201 kilometers now. Kármán line, which is generally associated with entering space, is at 100. So they are definitely in space. This is awesome. Very cool. Just another post here from John Krause, who's a SpaceX photographer for Inspiration 4 and Polaris Dawn. He just said no words, photos later. And for him to say that, that's pretty impressive.
Well, it's just so hard not to be engrossed in all of it. You know, unfortunately, the launch portion is pretty short, so you need to be paying attention. But it's nice to have this feed from SpaceX, even if we're having a little issues with the signal.
Well, you know, I think maybe one of the tests that's going on that's not as heralded, but the Starship does have Starlink antennas on it, and they're testing to see how well that works.
Right.
So, you know, this may be part of that test as well, but hopefully we'll get some views back here soon. It looks to me like the telemetry is still processing.
Okay, so
great
here's
view
another
inside. And oh, the door is opening, I think.
Where at?
Right here. At the bottom, I think that's the door. It's kind of a semicircular along the wall at the bottom of the image.
Okay, so that was all of that sort of clouds that we just saw.
I think so. We'll see. Obviously,
it just
first
went
time
away,
we've seen it.
so it looked like maybe it was. We're almost 17 minutes into the third test flight of Starship, so it is going fantastic so far. Truly. I hope that all the headlines are positive.
Well, I hope so too, because this has been I don't want to overuse it, but it's definitely a historic mission.
Yeah.
First time something like this size, the capability has reached orbit. And now we're just trying to see how some of the operational systems would work. And
Elon Musk just posted Starship reached orbital velocity,
which is outstanding.
And he had to rush back here, I guess, right? He was at Giga Berlin, so.
All right, so you know, again, we don't know what the milestones are for their particular testing, when they're going to try to do certain things.
What was that?
I don't know, but it does look to me like the door is opening. You can see the lights here, and you can see the door sliding open. So that would be for that payload door. And I don't know if they're doing the tip-take transfer at the same time. Again, that's to see if we can transfer propellant from the header tanks to the main tanks. And if it goes well, I think the test was about, I don't know, 10 tons worth of propellant. And part of the reason why they can do that is they're not going to be doing a landing burn. So they don't need to have all that propellant in the header tanks to support that landing burn. So instead, they're going to use this for this test. And hopefully that is going on pretty well.
And over 12,000 people watching the stream.
That is awesome.
So
thank you very much.
You're carrying the commentary. You really are.
Well, I hope I'm not blabbering around too much.
No, I need you here. I really do. I like asking questions, and you are good at giving answers.
And speaking of which, if you have any questions, put them in the chat.
Any questions, please let us know, and we'll do our best to answer them.
Okay. The altitude is still going up slowly, but that means that they're still going towards apogee, but it's going slower, so it means they're getting closer to that. Interestingly enough, you can see, if you're watching the SpaceX feed, they have the LOX and the CH4, that's to be the liquid oxygen and the methane tank display under the speed and altitude. And you can see that almost all of the propellant and the oxidizer has been expended, which is what you would expect, and that's what they were trying to do on Ship 25. But there should be enough for, I don't know if it's one, maybe a couple of the Raptors to fire so that they can do that that deorbit burn. And to do that, they need to position the ship so that the Raptors are facing in the opposite direction of motion. So that means that they're going to have to test the gas thrusters to be able to reorient the Starship. So that may be going on as well. And we're at about 20 minutes, so approximately halfway to the point where we would see it get into the Indian Ocean. So maybe 5 minutes before that, it should start the reentry. So that's some of the stuff that we're waiting for.
You said it was going to be 45 minutes.
For it to hit 45 minutes. I don't remember exactly.
Okay.
Let me see if I can.
So it might happen even sooner.
Let me see if I can bring up that information for you.
It's okay if you can't.
Booster.
Will Starship be recovered after reentry?
No, it'll hit the water at such a velocity it will disintegrate and it will just sink to the bottom of the ocean.
So it'll be a new underwater attraction.
Okay. So the propellant transfer should be at 24 minutes, and then the payload door will close at 28 minutes. Relight at 40 minutes. Ship entry at 49 minutes. So I'm a little bit off.
Okay.
And then I guess an hour and 4 minutes will be the touchdown. So we have a ways to go. I was a little bit off on the timing, so I apologize for that.
Well, and I am checking out some of the comments. Gregory, thank you. I'm glad that you enjoy having two of us. Joe is, again, very much carrying us here.
It looks to me from the SpaceX feed as they're doing some thruster checks. They're actually turning the Starship right now.
Brittany wants to know, is it dumping satellites out the cargo doors? It is not.
Not this time. The milestone was to test to make sure that the door would open and close. And I don't know if they're going to test the actual mechanism for the Starlinks. Maybe they can move it to see, would it be able to position the Starlinks for the deployment? But there are none this time. However, we heard, I think it was from Eric Berger just a few minutes ago, that assuming that this test goes well, the next launch may actually have Starlinks on board. So that would be really another great milestone to see, and basically a form of confidence for SpaceX to be putting Starlinks on that soon in the prototype development stage, which is right now undergoing all the tests that we talked about earlier. And so far, knock on wood, fingers crossed, so good. Just trying to look at whatever telemetry we have. The altitude looks like it is stabilized at 231 kilometers, which means it may be at apogee, again, the highest point in the orbit. And if that is in fact the case, well, actually it went up another kilometer, so they're still working that up. But pretty soon we should start seeing that decrease, especially when they do the Raptor relight.
Just like to hold it.
Oh, okay. It doesn't look like this anymore. They're separated, and this part's in orbit.
Well, like I said, it's kind of weird when you go back there and it's truly gone.
Exactly.
You're like, I just saw that thing yesterday, and I was looking up at it and seeing it in person. One of the things that we were talking to people about yesterday, Starbase is so much bigger and better, and same with your Cybertruck, than they expected.
Yes.
So everything's a little different in person. And again, I know I say this a lot, I'm a broken record, but we encourage you to come down sooner than later to Starbase.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend it because as time goes on, the access will be more and more restricted. It's just a consequence of a maturing program. But if you can come out now, you can still get really great views of the orbital launch site and get really close, remarkably close to the booster and some of the activity that's going on out there.
Well, and again, you're allowed to walk behind the OLM. You just have to not trespass.
Don't go past the private property signs. Okay, so the altitude is still inching up a little bit, so they're still in the apogee, the highest, getting towards the highest part of that orbit right now. You'll note that the orbital velocity has dropped off. Now it's about 26,000. That's because they are kind of going uphill, if you think about it. But also, it's now about maybe 1,000 kilometers an hour short of what it needs for orbit. But again, I think that's intentional because they want to have this re-enter, and whether it's controlled with doing the deorbit burn or just naturally, they want it to be able to re-enter into a safe point. And that would most likely be in the Indian Ocean, but if it were to continue a little bit further, then somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. But this continues on. We're at 25 minutes. And if I go back to the timeline, some of the stuff that we should be expecting right now, propellant transfer demo should be underway right now. I'm not seeing any information from SpaceX that's telling us, but the timeline is basically right now. So I hope that that's successful.
Yeah, it's been kind of without signal for a little bit now, right?
Yeah, but that's, you know, to be expected. They're testing Starlink, but they also use ground stations, and they may be in a location uh, that doesn't have a lot of coverage.
So no
So,
Starlink deployment on this one, but someone wanted to know how many Starlinks would they be able to deploy. We know that the Falcon 9s are usually around 60 per,
actually,
launch.
the Falcon 9 was in the 50s with the version 1s, the version 2 about 22, although they've been stretching the Falcon 9's capability to 24. The Starship, it's hundreds. I don't remember the exact number, but it's several hundred at one time. But cool.
So almost 27 minutes in.
Yep. So we should be in about a minute. They should do the payload close, and then at 40 minutes and 46 seconds, the Raptor in-flight lighting demo. So we're still progressing. If the telemetry that I see is correct, they are definitely now past apogee because they've lost a kilometer in altitude. The speed is actually picking up, so that would be also consistent with them starting to come back down. And some people ask, well, when you're in space, there's no gravity, right? Well, that's not.
Signal.
Oh, awesome! We got a signal back showing the payload bay door area
Again.
Um,
What were you saying?
But
Gravity?
yeah, gravity doesn't just go away when you're in orbit. In fact, gravity at orbital altitude, where the Starship is right now, is virtually the same as what we're feeling right now. But the way you counteract that is you have a large horizontal velocity. So you're basically falling around the Earth. So every time gravity pulls you a little bit, you've moved a little bit farther, and you just continue to do that. And that's what an orbit is.
And about 17,000 miles per hour?
About 17,500 miles an hour for orbital velocity at low Earth orbit. That would change if you were at geosynchronous orbit, or approximately 27,000 kilometers per hour.
So why is the gravity virtually the same for us? Because that might confuse some people.
Okay. Well, the gravity is it acts like a force, and its strength decreases with the square of your distance away. So they're basically 100 and
So
200 kilometers above us.
Still in that LEO.
But they're very, and the difference is very small. Now, why do astronauts feel weightless? Well, that's because they're falling around the Earth. Just with the spaceship and the astronauts, everything on that is just basically falling. So if you were to go on, I don't know, a 0G flight and the aircraft is falling, that's why you feel weightless, because you're all falling at the same rate.
Oh, I've done that.
Yeah, so that's why the 0G is important, is it simulates the exact conditions that you would have in orbit as far as the weightless.
Now, how much lower is this Starship than, the Starlinks in orbit right now?
Most of the Starlinks are at around the 500 kilometer range. Starship is at about 230, so about half the height. And it looks like the altitude is continuing to drop, which means it is now heading towards perigee. Again, perigee is the lowest point of the orbit, and
apogee is the highest.
Exactly. And
I know something.
No. It
ain't much, but it's honest work.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, those terms, apogee means highest point above Earth. G is like geo. Yeah. So if you were over the moon, it would be Apoluna or Apolune.
Yeah,
or if you're over the sun, it would be aphelion. So the moon, the sun, the Earth, but a lot of people just call it apogee. The technical term would be like apoapsis or periapsis, and that would be no matter where you're at.
Wow, almost 30 minutes in.
Yep. So we would be approximately 15 minutes away from the Raptor relight if that goes well, and we might see the payload door shut here soon. From the images that I'm seeing from SpaceX, it's really hard to tell how much of the door actually opened up, but clearly they were able to open it to some degree. But are there any other questions that I can help maybe answer?
People are wondering how you like your your Cybertruck.
Wait, before that,
Oh, okay.
someone's saying Joe's commentary is better than NASA's.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you very
so
much.
again, you are carrying the show. So, I really do appreciate you. Can I book you every time?
Sure, sure. I just hope I'm not talking too much, or
No, you're keeping it going, and I think you're educating people, including me. So I do
Okay.
appreciate it.
All right, some nice views of the exterior of Starship. It looks like maybe some venting of some sort is going on. That could be, this is a guess, but they could be doing the chill down again of the Raptors. They still have to do that in space to prepare for a relighting. We're about 15 minutes away from that, so it's possible. I didn't see what that was. SpaceX just posted.
Test door complete.
Okay.
So door closed.
All right, so it looks like the test for the payload door seems to be successful. If you're looking at the live stream, you can see it looks like ice kind of coming off the back end of the ship. That is normal. It's basically the cryogenics freezing and falling away from the ship. And you actually see that with the Falcon 9 too when they're getting ready. But all of this should be because they are doing that chill down to make sure the engine's at the right temperature so that they can actually try to light it again. So almost 32 minutes in, so about 12 minutes away possibly from that relight. And as you can tell, the altitude has dropped down 219, so we're about 220, 219, so we've lost about 15 kilometers of altitude, which is great. Again, we're now proceeding towards the lower part of the orbit. And the speed will creep up a little bit as we lose that altitude.
I hate to admit this, but I'm actually shocked at how successful they had. So many ambitious goals, and I'm so proud of them. But like, I didn't expect them to be able to do all of these today. It just shows, how hard they worked in between every launch, and what a competent team they have at Starbase.
Absolutely.
A lot of people talk about Elon Musk as, being the sole person behind this, and there are hundreds of people working around the clock down at Starbase. I mean, there's work going on 24/7.
Yes, and we got a chance to meet some of them, and they're just the most inspiring people themselves. And the funny thing is many of them say, "Hey, we watch Ellie to learn what's going on." So that's cool. From the live stream, if you can see that, you can see that the Starship is maneuvering. My guess is that they are in the process of repositioning the Starship to get ready for that retro burn. Retro means opposite direction that you are traveling. So for them to be able to slow the ship down to bring it into the atmosphere, it needs to be having the engines pointing in the direction that they are going so that they can slow themselves down. So if for those of you who remember the space shuttle would maneuver in space for them to do the orbital maneuvering systems engines, the OMS engines, to do the exact same thing. And then once that was completed, then the space shuttle would flip back. So the Starship's going to have to do the same thing. They would do the retro burn, slow it down to bring that perigee into the atmosphere so they know that it will re-enter. And then they're going to have to then reposition the ship so that the heat shields are facing towards where the atmosphere is. And I can't remember exactly, but I think it's about a 70-degree pitch that they will hold to try to use the atmosphere to slow them down for that re-entry. And you're basically using the atmosphere to do all the work for you, which is really cool. So
work smarter, not harder.
Exactly. And when they eventually go to Mars, it's going to be similar, but the atmosphere is so thin that they're going to have to do powered propulsion landing in addition to using the atmosphere. But good views now on the live stream again of the Starship. You can still see some more of that venting. You can see the Earth coming in, and the ship is moving around a lot. So I'm hoping that they're in control of it. I don't know, but hopefully that they're doing this as tests for their maneuvering.
How large is let's say like the potential payload area within Starship?
There's kind of two parts of that. One is how big of a door can they build to be able to get whatever they have in out. And it's not quite as simple as putting a big hinge and having half of it open up. So that's why, like with the payload bay door now, the kind of the PEZ dispenser, they've been doing a lot of work with that, especially the reinforcing around the edges.
Well, why can't you just make it as big as you need it?
Well, part of it has to do with the stresses that you see on launch, going through max Q, the dynamic pressure, and being able to support that. Some of it also in the space shuttle actually had this problem too with the doors, is that they can warp with the temperatures that you have in orbit. So they may not be aligned exactly right. So the larger you're opening, the more chance of warpage and not being able to close it properly. So they're going to have to, work their way through that. The second part is the actual cargo volume. And with the current iteration of the ship, I think they have something like 1,000 square meters of volume. And they may not be able to use all of that, but they certainly use a lot of it.
Right.
Now, the diameter is 9 meters, so they'd have to have something slightly smaller than 9 meters. So I know that there's several companies that are building space habitats that are around 8 meters that would be specifically designed for Starship.
Able to fit in there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And of course, there's that height as well. And I think SpaceX will work out what that's going to be. And then later on, when they do the V2s and they stretch the Starship, it'll get even bigger. So I hope that answers the question. Okay, 191 kilometers, 190 kilometers. So they're on that downward slope on the orbit. 36 minutes. So
almost, yeah.
maybe 8 minutes from when we see that retro launch, deorbit burn from the Raptors. So
well, we have almost 13,000 people, so we're just going to keep going.
Okay, well,
if
thank you
guys
very
are going
much.
to keep watching, and thank you to everyone who is super chatting. I really should be paying you.
When it speeds up in re-entry, is it doing that just because of gravity, or is it actually trying to propel itself out?
You mean like right now what it's doing is orbit is basically like being on like if you throw a rock in the air, it'll go up, it'll slow down, and then it'll hit the high point, and then as it comes down, gravity is accelerating it. So as it's losing its altitude, it's going to gain speed. In flying, we talk about trading altitude for airspeed, or it's kind of an energy management thing. And if you really want to get into it, it's they're trading potential energy, which is based on an altitude, for kinetic energy, which is based on a speed. So one of the other is being traded back and forth. So when you're going up in the top of the altitude, you're gaining potential energy and you're losing kinetic energy. And as you're coming back down, you're trading back. So that's what's happening.
He went to school for this.
Hopefully that's helpful.
No, it is.
So at 178 kilometers, the speed is picking up a little bit now. So it's exactly what we expect. 6 minutes from the attempt to do the relight. So hopefully that goes well. This will be the first time trying to relight at least a Raptor in space, but it's not the first time relighting a Methalox engine in space. That goes to the recent lunar landing that we just saw.
That's right.
Yeah.
Odie.
Yep. And it's still sleeping. I don't know if it's going to wake back up.
Intuitive Machines. Well, they were saying it was going to wake up, I think, around the same time, about 2 weeks later. So
we'll see.
Well, maybe. The idea is that, it needed to generate enough solar power to open up.
Yeah, that's part of it. The other part is it wasn't really designed to exist in the cold of the moon for extended period of times. A lot of the integrated circuits, the computer chips and everything, they tend to shatter or break their bonds because of the cold. So the chances of it coming back to life are small, but we'll see. I'm drawing a blank right now, but the Japanese lunar lander actually came back on life, so for a little bit of time.
Right.
Do they have to clear like shipping channels and all that?
Yes, they do. They send out.
Reiterate the question. Yeah.
Okay. The question is do they need to clear the shipping channels for the launch? And the answer is yes. They send out something called a NOTMAR, Notices to Mariners, and it gives you kind of a geographic location and a time, and it says you cannot be in this exclusion zone during this period of time because of, in this case, space operations. They do something similar for aviation. It's called Notices to Air Missions now. In my day, it was Notices to Airmen, but it's the same thing. And this altitude and this location from these times do not
Right.
enter this
We
area.
have not Mars and no TAMS.
Correct.
It sounded like there were some boats this morning that almost messed things up.
Yeah, there were some ships out in part of the area, and that delayed a few minutes. It wasn't as bad. There was a Falcon 9 that actually ended up having to be canceled because of a cruise ship.
Cruise ships.
And
out
I'm
at
sure that that was
KSC,
very
yeah.
expensive for the cruise
Right.
line.
And helicopters. We've heard it all,
Yeah.
People just getting in the way.
Okay, so we're about 3.5 minutes, or 3 minutes or so from the attempted
Wow.
booster, or the boost back, not the boost back, but the deorbit burn. We've lost a lot of altitude, 155 kilometers. You can see that the speed is picking up as well. So from what I can tell, this is kind of online with what they would want to see.
How do they conduct a hot fuel mixture in the vacuum of space?
How do they conduct a hot fuel mixture in the vacuum of space? Someone wants to know.
Well, it's basically it's the same as on the ground, but you have the oxidizer, you have the propellant, in this case, methane. This is a full flow combustion cycle, so you're going to have one of the turbines that's oxygen rich with a little bit of methane, the other one vice versa, and then they have igniters, and they'll put it through the preburner, they'll ignite it, and the pressures and the igniter will be enough to start that combustion process, and then the engine would work. And once that happens, then it's basically, after a lot of engineering type stuff, but it's basically just managing the flow of propellant through, and it would be self-sustaining to that point. I will say that this is the first time they've attempted the Raptor engine in space, so I think they're just as interested as everybody else to see, does it actually work as advertised, or what are the issues that they will incorporate or encounter. And we're 2-ish minutes away from that test, so hopefully
I hope we can see it.
I hope so. They're still waiting a signal, and
I hope a shark isn't hurt.
I hope not to. But
The real fans know.
yeah.
The real SpaceX fans.
Yeah, so
I really do hope a shark isn't hurt.
okay, I do too. This is again somewhat speculation on my part, but assuming it survives re-entry and it gets into that belly flop, and assuming that belly flop goes well, they will probably impact the water at something like 200, 250, 300 miles an hour, which would be somewhere on the order of, doing public math here real quick, but maybe about 400 kilometers per hour, 500 kilometers per hour. So it'll be enough to destroy the ship, which is sort of planned. Okay, really good views from the exterior of the Starship. If you're watching on the live stream, we're looking down at one of the grid fins. I think that they have this view because if they are successful lighting the Raptor engine, this will be great to see. We probably won't see a big flame, but you'll see kind of vapors coming from the back of the Starship.
So I've lost count. If we have a successful re-entry and splashdown, have we met all of the goals?
I think the booster is probably didn't hit its goal.
Okay.
We'll just have to see how far it went. It looked to me like it was spinning. We're having some control with that, but
Starship completed tank-to-tank propellant transfer demonstration according to Michael Sheets. So
okay, so that's another great milestone.
Incredible.
So they've demonstrated that they can transfer fuel in orbit, which is a major milestone.
Has that ever been?
It's been done on small scales,
okay,
but not on the scales that we're going to need for Starship.
Wow.
This was about 10 tons if they go by plan. Eventually, we're going to be talking about thousands of tons.
So impressed with SpaceX. What they've been able to do, just
it's
continuing
incredible
to change the game for space, up the bar.
We should be seconds away from seeing the Raptor ignition. In addition to what on the live stream, you'll maybe see those kind of vapors coming from the back. If it works well, what you should see is the velocity decreasing pretty quickly. They're approaching the Kármán line, so their altitude has really come down a lot.
Why would the velocity be decreasing now?
Well, when the engines ignite, they will be decreasing because it's doing a retro burn. But I'm looking at the live stream like everybody here. It looks like the ship is maneuvering a lot.
Are
It
those
looks like
birds?
the fins are.
Oh no, those are tiles, not birds, right?
No, I think that's ice, and
Really?
the fins have been pulled in. So I'm not sure why that's the case. Where it's still, if the telemetry is right, 110
Oh,
kilometers.
look.
Oh, I know. The camera is on the upper fin, so you can see actually the grid fins are starting to move a little bit. So I don't know if that's a test or what, but they're still above the Kármán line, and I don't know if the engine lit or not. I honestly don't know, and I'm not sure if they're in control at this point in time or not. But we're watching it together.
Well, it's still incredibly exciting, impressive. I hope someone didn't sleep in.
They're definitely
Okay,
doing
we're
some
having
maneuvering
a
right
little bit
now.
yeah.
They're asking, is the roll an issue?
I don't know. I'm actually wondering myself.
We're still trying to figure out if the roll is an issue. We're still trying to figure out what's going on. Because we are watching this in real time with you.
They're now passing through the Kármán line, so they're. Oh, we actually see some.
Wow!
We're seeing some plasma heating on the ship,
From the reentry, right? Is that
which
from
is
the reentry?
It is. This is the atmosphere interacting with a shock wave with the tiles, and it's causing that glow that you see.
Wow. That's really cool.
And since the camera is on the grid fin, as the grid fin moves, we see it moving as well. And if you look at the display, you can see the image, the cartoon of the Starship is pointing up almost at that 70 degree. So now it's moving around. So I don't know how much this is normal,
90 kilometers altitude, so
yeah. But you're definitely seeing the
close.
interaction of the ship and the atmosphere right now.
Wow.
And that plume that you see is that plasma. It may affect the transmission because it interferes with the radio frequencies. However, if they're using Starship and it's on the leeward side of the wind flow, we may actually, we're still getting telemetry and we're still getting views, which in and of itself is kind of historic.
And
if that continues,
now the Starship is pointing a different direction.
Yeah, that may not be ideal.
Really? Okay.
I don't think they want the nose pointing down. So, but we're still getting some visuals, which is incredible. I'm gonna have to wait to see what SpaceX says about this, but I would expect the nose to be pointing up at this point in time. 80 kilometers can you see, is SpaceX saying anything right now? This is made of stainless steel. It itself is able to withstand quite a bit of temperature. So even if it's pointing in the wrong direction, it may be demonstrating the strength of the stainless steel as well. But you can see the display is moving around a lot. That's a lot more than I would anticipate, to be honest. I would think it would be at a stable
well, but look at
trajectory.
The orientation is moving again, so we're pointing a little
It is,
again.
but I would expect it to be stable at about a 70 degree up all the way through, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to put the maximum amount of drag to slow it down. And if it's moving around like it's doing, that would suggest to me, like what it's doing right now seems like it's not what they want. But to that being said, they're letting it continue. They haven't triggered the flight termination system, so maybe it's part of the maneuvering. I don't know.
69 kilometers.
I'm blabbering along, but capsules and the space shuttle itself did maneuvering through during reentry, because that helps increase that drag and slowing them down. So
65 kilometers. Speed went down a little bit. Almost 50 minutes of the stream.
Now we actually have some heat shields here, so these are what's doing all the work on Starship right now. There are 18,000 hexagonal
It looks like the telemetry
18,000 hexagonal tiles. 18,000?
Yeah.
18,000.
Yes. And you can think about how much they weigh and then what the weight is on that.
When you look at it in person, it doesn't look like there'd be 18,000.
Yeah.
That's insane.
And they're all, at least right now, they're all put on by hand.
18,000? I would have guessed like 1,800. I guess I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, it just shows you how small they really are.
Yeah.
Honeycomb.
They're really lightweight.
They are lightweight.
Sound a little different than I would have expected them to. But
Yeah, they're kind of talking about this, the heat shields on that. And if you saw the one that we found after ship 24, I mean, it looks exactly the same. It's kind of a sort of like a ceramic compound, two different kinds, a white and then an outer black covering, and then it's on a stainless steel mounting part, and then that attaches to the ship.
So why is it spin at 65 kilometers
I
for
think
a hit?
my guess,
Is
this
it
is my
dying?
guess, is I think that they probably lost telemetry on it, and I think the ship is probably,
So they're killing time.
yeah,
They're stalling.
because it was maneuvering like it was maneuvering, my guess is that they lost control of it. That's my guess. So I'm trying to get what they're saying.
I think they're killing time.
Yeah, I think they're doing the same thing we're
Should have
doing,
brought your prop.
trying to figure out what's going on.
So they launched on Pi Day. It's Pi Day, or is it just happy coincidence?
Did they launch on Pi Day because it's Pi Day? I think that Elon is the king of memes, and we had 420, we had 6.9. This may be an ode to the engineering that goes into it.
Yeah, I maybe there's some of the intention, but I think, to be honest, SpaceX just wanted to get this launch over with. They wanted to have success, and this is far more successful than any of the previous ones. We're gonna have to see how stage 0 survived, but really, they want to get on to the next flight. They if they're gonna
And
do
they
six,
can. They have the hardware. They have the
they
combo.
do. But the big question is did this trigger any mishap stuff? Did stage 0 survive?
We're gonna find
And
that
we're going to
out.
find that out.
Well, they're killing time.
Yeah, so you guys are probably seeing what we're seeing with the SpaceX thing, and I think it's probably over. Well, actually, the way they're talking is it may be in that communication blackout period. So they're expecting in another, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes that they might be doing the splashdown. So we'll see. So we'll just keep watching along with you guys. There's no telemetry for me to talk about right now. The same thing as the SpaceX people too. The diagram of the Starship, if it's accurate, is what I would expect. You can see it's pointing up that way, and that would be more of the desired continuous end. But we'll see. We're at 53 minutes in, and I forget what was the timing. We said 1 hour and 4 minutes was when it was going to. Okay, so we're only 10 minutes away from something hitting the water. For sure, it's going to. It's entering and it's going to hit the water. The question is, will it look like a Starship hitting the water, or will it look like a whole bunch of parts hitting the water? But are there any other questions?
What is your guys' impression of the launch so far?
Oh, it's exponentially better than, any of the launches we've seen.
Yes.
By orders of magnitude, as we, hear the phrase often, but it has been extremely successful.
Yeah, I think NASA has got to be very thrilled with this. I think SpaceX is thrilled with this. The data that you get now, because it's progressed so far, is just, it's priceless because... And even right now, I don't know what's happening with it, but I'm sure if the ship survives enough and they can get that data link, they're getting data right now. So they are learning how the ship works, what didn't work, what do they need to change. And instead of just doing simulations, they have real data. So I personally, the question was, is it a success? And it absolutely is. It's a stunning success, in my opinion. And you know, I hope that the reporting on this from, you know, the non-space community, I hope it's very positive because it needs to be, and this should be heralded as a enormous success.
Do you know how many launches we're going to do this year?
They're
The-
aiming for 6. They were originally aiming for 9 launches, but you know, I think because of the time of year it is and the time potentially in between, Elon said that they're probably going to be more around 6.
Yeah, I think 6 might be optimistic too. It's a question of if there's a mishap and an investigation. It's a question of stage 0 and how it did. It's a question of production, and it's a question of testing as well. You know, we just talked about this is a success, and they're gathering a lot of data. They may find some data that says that they need to redesign something. So a lot of that's going to play into the number. And SpaceX themselves just said they're not sure what the status is at this point in time because we theoretically would be in that blackout period. Again, that's caused by the atmospheric heating, the plasma generation, and the disruption of radio signals to the ship.
I'm just crying.
Blackout period during reentry?
For capsules, it's approximately 6-ish minutes.
And this is the usual blackout period.
Yes. You know, they were trying to see if Starlink would work. They had an FCC license to do that. I just don't know how well it worked or if the ship survived. But for the Starship, it might be on the order of magnitude the same, or it may be slightly different. But, you know, we are 8 minutes from it supposedly hitting the ocean. Usually a few minutes before that point, we would be having to have some sort of communication. So I would expect very soon.
We have a standstill of traffic behind us here on the
Oh,
causeway.
yes. So I wish I could give a better answer, but that's about the best I know right now. SpaceX is showing some footage of, I think, SN15. They're just sort of giving you an idea what a landing bird might look like. This ship is not going to attempt that at all. And with that successful propellant tank transfer, there isn't any fuel left anyway to even attempt a landing if they wanted to.
Isn't that crazy to look at that landing compared to where we are today and just the evolution of Starship from hopper
absolutely.
to this day?
It's in the space industry. This is just like leaps and bounds faster than what you see anywhere else.
Well, and if you haven't been paying attention to Starship yet, it's time to hop on board.
Yes, absolutely.
And be a part of it.
Yeah, and you know, Starship is great. It's got a lot of capability too, but don't overlook a lot of the other companies as well.
Right.
You know, Rocket Lab is doing great work, and they're like the second most busy commercial rocket launch company. And you have Blue Origin coming up, Relativity. Stoke Space is really cool as well, and a variety of other up and coming commercial space. And I still think this is the golden age of space, and it's just great that we have the opportunity to be watching all this.
Well, and SpaceX is a huge reason why any of those other companies even started, really.
They definitely helped open a lot of the doors that are making it possible. Okay, so we're 6 minutes away, so we'll see what happens. Yeah.
I'm doubtful of getting the feedback, which is unfortunate.
What feedback on what?
The feed
Oh.
back.
We'll see. As I
Feedback.
mentioned, we were told that there wasn't necessarily any visual capability in that area, but maybe they'll surprise us, or maybe they're just hoping that they get something from the ship itself.
So we will be live until this wraps up,
Exactly.
which should be in a couple minutes here. So if you guys enjoyed the stream today, we've also set a record here with the amount of people watching, over 13,000 people. So thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel, Ellie in Space. I'm trying to reach that 100,000 subscriber mark, and I'm getting closer. So subscribe because it's free.
Yeah.
And subscribe to Joe Tagmeyer if you would like to. Your last name, Tegtmeyer.
Right. Or you could Google Giga Texas Drone. You probably find me.
Yeah.
But, you know, Ellie's got a lot of people that watch her. Yesterday, A master sergeant from the Air Force said that his 13-year-old daughter was a big fan of Ellie, and he had to turn around and come back and get a picture with her for his daughter. So Ellie is touching a lot of great audiences in all age groups.
It's amazing, the people that I reach that I have no idea about, So when I have people come up to me and say, I watch you all the time, I'm from, wherever in the world, it really is an honor. And what a cool job. But also SpaceX is the reason I have a job.
All right, so 4-ish minutes till we know for sure, and I know SpaceX is watching as well.
I'm just crying because it's so beautiful. No, it's so windy up here, and it's so windy up here.
Yeah, SpaceX says that they lost their TDRS, which is the tracking and data relay satellite system, and Starlight at the same time, so that could indicate that the ship was lost. And that might be consistent with that maneuvering that I told you I thought was not normal. But, we're in 3 minutes, it'll have either reconnected and we'll see something, or it'll have already hit the water, and if not already now.
Well, I can't tell if I'm more hungry or tired. So I'd like a little intermission, and then...
As long as you're not hangry.
I'm not hangry yet.
Okay.
They're still waiting, which like I said, I don't.
I think that they're doing that. Everybody's doing the same thing as us because nobody has any view.
We're whistling, we're tap dancing.
But even still, they got some data about the reentry, the controllability. The boost, the thrusters that they use to reorient it in space is kind of a new idea. In the sense that they're using the pressurized gas inside the tanks themselves. And interestingly enough, not that I'm going to give Tim Dodd a shout out, but if you watched his tour, if you watched Everyday Astronaut's tour with Elon through the factory, there was a point where Tim asked him, well, why don't you just use those same thrusters from the booster on the ship? And Elon thought about it, and it became a design change. So. But the question is do they work? Did they work as advertised? Did it give them the thrust authority that they wanted? And that will be data that they get.
Well, and some people were asking us yesterday, does SpaceX have an official reporter? And they don't. But they have you and me and Tim and a whole cottage industry of,
NSF, what about it?
Creators,
Marcus House,
Lab
there's so
Padre,
many.
there are so many people. So they don't really need a team, much like they don't. They've been doing fine without Tesla advertising for a long time, and it's because the people are talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
If people wanted to come to see a launch, where should they stay? Where should they eat?
If people want to come see a launch, where should they stay? Where should they eat? There's a couple different options of where to stay. Obviously, I love Margaritaville. I'm staying here. It is a newly renovated resort down here on South Padre Island. But there are, plenty of good places to stay on SPI. There's also a couple options in Port Isabel, which is right across the bridge. There is a Starship-themed Star B&B that my friends run. That one is a great place for sort of a private view, and you can sleep many people there. And then you have Rocket Ranch, which is only 8 miles away from Starbase. That is a long Highway 4 on the way to Starbase, and they have a great little serene, campground. They also have Airstreams and a guest ranch house. So there's different options there. Places to eat. Hopper House is Starship themed. It's SpaceX themed. It's, a bar and grill. They actually have amazing food. I can't speak for the beers because I don't drink, but a lot of people seem to like them. There's also
they also have Tesla chargers there too.
Oh wow. There's a hibachi place. I'm spacing on the name, but if you type hibachi South Padre Island, you're gonna find it. It's probably the best hibachi I've ever had. What else?
A lot of the hotels here on South Padre Island have nice restaurants inside too.
Yeah.
So you could try that out. But most of the touristy type of food that you're going to get is on South Padre Island, not necessarily over at Port Isabel. And if you go to Starbase, there's nothing. So
there really is nothing. I mean, you need to make sure you bring water, you bring sunscreen. which I didn't do a very
Yeah.
good job of doing. And that's how it fools you, because it wasn't that hot yesterday, and it wasn't, unbearably sunny. But it doesn't matter. You can still get a lot of sun.
Yeah,
and
we're at a
sunburn.
lower latitude here too, so the sun is more intense.
Okay, so we're past that
We
mark.
are past the
so
time, so
Is it true that Tesla motors are the things that control the grid fins?
they are.
Is it true that Tesla motors are what controls the grid fins?
Right, to move them. I think it's either a model. I think it's a Model 3 motor that they use per each of the grid fins. And I don't know anymore, but the earlier, SN 5 and 6, they actually used a Model S battery pack. And it was pretty much right out of the car, so you could see the wheel wells and the battery pack too.
So someone just commented saying, "Thanks, Ellie. You're the best launch coverage." That is
Awesome.
crazy. I feel like I've come a long way with the channel, and every time we come here, we upgrade the equipment, we upgrade the service now that we have. So I'm, there's a lot of great streams, and I'm really thankful that you guys liked it.
Yeah, well,
And in large part, that's because of you.
well, thank you very much for tuning in and supporting Ellie, and this has been a lot of fun for me. I think we're probably wrapping it up. The SpaceX is too, but I just okay. So what
The ship was lost. It's been confirmed.
right, and I think it was that tumbling that we were seeing. But what I do want to just take this opportunity before we end
Yes.
this is congratulations to SpaceX. Congratulations to all of the SpaceX employees, the people that support the launch, all of the people providing the security, everything. This was an enormous success. Don't let anybody say otherwise. The data they got, how far they went is
I
just
think this was
outstanding.
obvious.
Yeah.
Like anyone who sees this, compared to the first one in particular, obvious success. And just, I'm so proud of the SpaceX team, because
Yes.
this is not easy.
No, it is not.
What they're
Especially-
doing,
Yeah, especially with
unprecedented.
completely new designs on everything. So
unprecedented.
my personal just congratulations and well done. And I can't wait to see what you guys do next.
And for all of the doubters that we're going to be on Mars, every time that we have, success like this, I hope that less people doubt and more people believe.
Yes, I agree.
Do you have any idea when the next flight's going to be?
Do we have any idea when the next flight is going to be? We know that the ship and booster are pretty much ready, and it all depends on a couple things. How is the orbital launch pad and mount looking? We're going to go down there hopefully pretty soon and check it out. So if there aren't too many issues there probably won't be a mishap investigation, and that's going to speed things up.
Right. My guess is that there is going to be some degree of a mishap investigation. So that's going to take a period of time. They're going to look into the data. They're going to have to see if they have to redesign what they've already built, because they do have quite a bit already built. And once those things are answered, then it's getting into that testing regime again. So,
Oh my gosh, they're all playing pies. We
very
should have
good.
done
Pie
that.
day. Yeah, we should have. But
I should have pied you.
my guess is it's going to be maybe 2 months.
And they're done.
Okay. So that would be my guess.
So, okay, 2 months.
That-
I would say that's probably accurate.
Okay.
So we will get to Starbase as soon as we can. Hopefully we can do a live stream there
Yep.
because of my Starlink.
Yep.
And thank you so much to everyone who watched today. I'm overwhelmed, and I was worried that my launch coverage wouldn't be successful here, and we've broken a record with the Ellie in Space stream. So thank you so much for watching.
All right. Thank you.